Currently, the appointment of university heads is done by the Public Service Commission that forwards 3 names of the most successful candidates to the University Council. At least 17 patients have been killed after heavy rainfall caused flooding at a hospital in Mexico's central Hidalgo state. Officials say a river burst its banks and water then cut the power supply in the hospital in the town of Tula. Some of the victims were COVID-19 patients who are on oxygen support. Rescuers evacuated about 40 patients. Meanwhile, a boat transporting the state governor sank in the river. And in business, M-Pesa has hit the 50 million active users mark in Africa as it eyes to expand services across the continent. The mobile financial services platform is operated by Safaricom in Kenya and South Africa's Vodafone, which runs the services through its subsidiaries in Tanzania, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Mozambique, Lesotho, Ghana, and Egypt. And in sports, Scotland impressively revived their World Cup 2022 qualification hopes by climbing into a playoff place after a momentous victory in Austria. Lyndon Dykes' penalty, awarded after a VAR check, gave Steve Clarke's men's a lead they clung onto in Vienna. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
There are so many people peddling what is false and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. You know, they gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog,
He's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort. Afande hii umbo yako iko na
nini umba special.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. SpiceFM, Nyeri.
Coming out of Westlands this morning, there is quite some traffic. There's not quite sure why that's building up there. But a few minutes after 6 o'clock shows that most of the roads this morning are still moving along, moving along rather smoothly. There's some traffic that's already building up, as is expected, on Mombasa Road today. This is all the way from Sabaki, moving towards the Way Bridge and then out towards the SGR. That's going to continue for some time. But things are at a dull roar right now this morning in the city. No traffic. Coming off of Thika Super Highway. Looks pretty good. Nobody's up just yet, except for Westlands. There must be something. We'll have a look at that in a short while as we start the day. Talk to us as well, should you run into anything. SpiceFMKE on Twitter. Text on 40127. Let's start this Wednesday off right.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Yes, it is. It's 8 minutes after 6. A very good morning to you. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation on this 8th day of the 9th month of 2021. How are you doing, Ndu?
I am fine, thank you.
Very good to see you.
Very good to be seen. It's very good to see you, Eric. Bright-eyed, bushy-tailed this morning.
None of those things, but it's fine. It's okay.
You're not of those things? You're not bright-eyed?
Nah.
But why?
It's Wednesday, man.
Abba.
It's hump day. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. So, a lot has happened in the last 24 hours. A lot is happening in the last 24 hours. Politically, there's movement every single day. And then nationally, there are a lot of things that are happening. The operation that was ordered by the National Security Council is said to have started. Notice I've said it's said to have started.
Yeah.
Because the people of some of these areas have not yet felt that operation. The bandits have not yet felt that operation. None of them has been arrested. Nobody has been put behind bars. Nobody has been disarmed. But there's an operation that's going on in Laikipia. So this is something that is big. They torched a school yesterday. What does that mean?
Things have gone south.
Completely. Torched a school. Yeah.
It's not good. By the time we're getting to that point, and that's happening, there's a very difficult pictures to see yesterday. Even with the NSAC meeting, and even after, what you're saying about now security protocol being instituted, and then we see this happening. Again, it's those who have an agenda who are basically sticking it to the government, and you don't do anything about it. It's going to get worse.
Yes.
School today, it's something else tomorrow.
People have died.
Yeah.
Stuff is happening. Yeah. So we'll be discussing this and other stories. We'll be talking to the leadership of Laikipia County, starting with the governor, hoping to get one of the MPs in Laikipia to hear what's happening on the ground. We've seen what the administration is saying, but we'll be wanting to get the story from the people themselves as well. This and more coming up in today's conversation. We'll also ask ourselves again, what is it that people think about when they are electing a leader in terms of ethics? So what do you consider ethical from a leader? Oh, chapter 6. Oh, there's leadership. Oh, this is what we need to look out for. But what do the people perceive? What do the voters perceive as ethical? Citizens' perception of ethical leadership in the country. We had this conversation a couple of weeks back with the leadership of Transparency International and the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. We shall revisit that conversation today. In the meantime, let's talk about COVID-19 in numbers.
All right, let's look at what's going on. 704 new cases reported yesterday from a sample size of 6,776. It puts Kenya's positivity rate now at 10.4%. 5 deaths recorded yesterday. Cumulative fatalities now in the country of 4,800. Not a pretty situation, but it still continues. In terms of vaccinations and what's happening, we're seeing that more and more are becoming available in the country. Now, 5,146,780 vaccinations have been carried out in the country, and it includes those who've taken their first and second shots. And now we're seeing that there is a variety of vaccines available, and the Ministry of Health is encouraging and urging people to come out and get vaccinated. If we can look at what's happening in another part of the world right now, Australia switched tack on COVID-0. Australia has changed its COVID strategy, and they're saying it's time to leave lockdowns and come out of the cave, according to their Prime Minister, Scott Morrison. So vaccinations are accelerating, more and more people getting vaccinated, but Australians will soon live with the virus for the first time, and that's it. Not trying to eliminate it, but realizing that, you know what, it's here, so let's coexist. The same way you coexist with other diseases, get vaccinated. If you get sick, go to hospital. So the Australian government has kind of looked at it differently now and said, we've spent the last 1.5 years really trying to fight against this thing. But you know what? And the lockdowns and, stopping people from doing their business, not being able to go on holiday, not being able to go to work.
Going into Australia.
Right, stopping people from going into the country. So they said, you know what? This is not working anymore. We've had one case and shut down the entire country. We've had 300 cases and shut down the entire country, and we're still left in the same place. So Morrison is saying, you know what we're going to do? Insist that vaccinations are full throttle, but let's open up. We've realized that this thing is not going away anytime soon, but there are ways in which we can now operate to live with it, and that's got to be the way of the future. This is what he's saying, Melbourne, for example, has lived through 200 days of lockdown. And when we talk about lockdown, we're talking about lockdown. You're not going anywhere save for essential movement, going to the grocery store, going to hospital, that kind of thing. Schools closed, and they're saying, you know what? We can't continue like this anymore.
Politicians can't really sustain this. You can't, because you get that political backlash. When people are locked down for long, then the issue is, all right, so we're staying in here, what are we doing in terms of affecting our livelihoods? We've seen it in the country, we have seen it in now we're seeing it in other parts of the world. It's a tough, I think this thing is just not an easy one. Australia, they were locking down just because, a statewide lockdown just because of one case. And everybody goes into lockdown. Restriction, they called it Fortress Australia. Restrictions of people going into Australia. People not allowed to actually get into Australia and that entire continent, considering itself an island that people are not going to come into. And now they have the Prime Minister is bowing to political pressure and saying, okay, let's just open it up. And you can imagine that's political pressure. It was going to be a campaign issue very soon. Look at Israel again. They went ahead and vaccinated many people. They went ahead and said, all right, so walk around freely. You don't have to wear a mask in public anymore. And then now they're talking about giving a third jab.
Yep.
I don't know what the world is. I don't know. This is the as they're dealing with all those things in the country, we are dealing with COVID as well. We're seeing rising cases and the number of deaths increasing as well. But the cost of hospitalization is what is a burden to many in the country. Right. Very many. Like we said last week, everybody is basically dealing with, contributing one way or the other to COVID, to somebody who's been affected by COVID.
There's a report
to
in
a
the
family
paper
that's
today
dealing
that
with
we'll
COVID.
look at. Yeah, I mean, we'll look at that story today, I'm sure. But, just looking at the fact that over half of those who have to deal with COVID are paying for this out of pocket. So even insurance doesn't help with that.
I don't even know what other half this story is, but we'll look at the story. Over half?
Yeah.
You want to tell me there's close to half that are able not to pay out of pocket?
Out of pocket.
Aye.
We'll look at that.
16 minutes after 6. Are you online? We are live streaming on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Say hello. We love to see who is online. Around the country, around the world. If there's anybody in Australia or down there, say hi. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Hello.
Halo, umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu acha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial *550*1# to read the Standard e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your telecom line, and stay up to date for a reliable source with over 100 years of experience with no additional data charges.
There are so many people peddling what is false, and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. They gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog.
He's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort. Nafandi umbo yako iko na pembe.
Nini umba special.
This is the Situation. The weather with
Mostly cloudy conditions
SpiceFM.
in Nairobi at 14, highs of 22 and lows of 13. Nakuru is clear at 14, highs of 25. We'll see highs of 21 in Nyeri, where it's raining at 13. In Kisumu, it's clear at 20, highs of 28, lows of 18 today. And Kakamega is raining as well. At 20, it'll go to highs of 28 and lows of 15. Mombasa this morning is mostly clear at 23. Going to highs of 29, and we'll see highs of 29 in Malindi, where it's raining at 24. Let's take a look down out into Kampala, where it's raining at 20, highs of 26 and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam this morning, a bit of a sprinkle at 22. That'll be the low for today, going to highs of 30. All right, and in Lagos, 25 degrees, mostly clear conditions, highs of 29. And in DRC, Kinshasa specifically, 24 degrees and clear, highs of 34 today and lows of 24. Let's look out then into Beijing. Where going into early afternoon at 26, we'll go to highs of 28 and lows of 19. In London, 17 degrees, there's a haze over London City. 28 will be the high and lows of 17. Paris is clear at 17, highs of 30 today, a warm day. And New York is waking up in a few hours. It's 23 on Tuesday night, highs of 27 and lows of 21.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4
Okay,
Spice
it's
FM,
20 minutes
Nairobi.
after 6.
Quite a number of people online this morning. Timothy Gamba Wapasha says, in as usual, Kangola Amos Morsho. Good morning to you. Clemo Jr. Bakoyoko Timboroa is tuned in today. And in from Kakamega is Jamal Nanjakululu. Mwalimu Dominic Chariot says, Kaptarakwa EMC tuned in this morning. Abraham Lukorito is tuned in as well. And Kolo Moja tuned in from Kisumu this morning. Beta Ashley is tuned in as well. Shamangwai says, hello, tuned in from Nakuru in Rongai. Hello, my fellow humans. That's Leslie, granddaughter, tuned in from Jamaica this morning. Diana Mburu, tuned in from Kitengela. And from Turkana, Torres says hello. From Gauteng, Kele Bogile Modise says good morning. Washira Wilfred has moved now permanently to Kitengela from Gishogo.
Oh.
New home made. Just a skip and a hop down the road here.
Okay. Karibu sana.
Karibu sana Kitengela. Moses Gashari says good morning, tuned in. And Mukoya Iowa tuned in from Lindy Kibra in Nairobi. He also says Laikipia is burning while we ignore and focus on the 2022 elections. Tana River has no basic needs like water. Turkana, hungry, and the rest of the named areas. Allah atunusuru. Pauline Maketa is tuned in from Joburg this morning, and Moses Kashari says, we need civic education and media has to change political coverage to real issues affecting Kenyans. Alice Munyawa is tuned in from Cumberland. She says, we are present. Happy to be joining. Say hi to CT Bishokoro.
Where is Cumberland?
Cumberland is
Is it next to Timberland?
East of the Standard Group building.
Okamba.
And going left. Good morning.
All
with
the way
love.
to Coast.
All the way, right.
Okay.
Good morning with love, and that's what Dorcas Chanda says from Zim. And Ben Apudo is tuning in from Kibera. There's so many people online this morning. Can't get to all of you, but asante sana for tuning in, and karibuni sana.
Karibu sana kila mtu kwenye kipindi cha leo. Welcome everybody. So today's Maasai proverb. Now that it is away, we are making sure that everybody knows that we have Maasai have proverbs.
Okay.
The withered tree will destroy the healthy tree when it falls down. The withered tree will destroy the healthy tree when it falls down.
When it falls down, or when the healthy tree falls down?
Sasa wewe. Do you remember yesterday's proverb? Huh?
Yeah.
A proverb does not translate itself.
Sasa mimi nauliza swali.
Unauliza nani?
Well,
Proverb.
When you're proverb. Proverb.
A withered tree does not destroy the healthy tree when it falls down. Or will destroy. Okay. On its way down,
Mm.
that will destroy the healthy one.
Sour. It's true.
It's true. You can see that. Okay,
You're going
let's
down,
look.
you take somebody down with you.
Yes, and you're the one who's withered.
Right.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So,
Eh.
there are things.
Okay.
CBC has been in the center of conversation for the longest time. It's carried on the front page of The Nation today. Inside CBC mock test for grade 5. There are many other things going on in the country, but this is a big deal right now as well. We're going to look into the Laikipia situation because we saw, again, some of those horrid pictures coming out of a school being torched. Inside CBC mock test for grade 5. The new competency-based curriculum system of education comes under sharp scrutiny. In a planned mock national assessment for grade 5 learners, the exam will offer a glimpse into how the pupils will move to junior secondary when they sit the actual grade 6 test next year. So this is the first group. Those who are in grade 5 currently are the first group then who will be entered into the new system against the policy which is now called junior secondary and then senior secondary. Okay. So what they're saying is that since it's the first time that will ever be done, let's do a mock test for the grade 5s right now and see how it would carry out when we do this in November next year. Right? The Kenya National Examinations Council will pilot the cumulative assessment targeting 18,000 learners in 210 schools across the 47 counties between September 27th and October 1st. The pilot test will be conducted in sample schools covering all categories and comes at a time when the curriculum is facing increased criticism over the cost of its implementation on parents and government's preparedness to fund the necessary infrastructure. And that right there is the issue for a lot of people with CBC. In that, a new curriculum was introduced simulating a system that, or rather, has borrowed heavily from systems in the other part of the world. Now, it needed to be heavily funded. And this is one of the complaints that teachers say, we're moving from the 844 to CBC without adequate training, and we're training on the go. 1. 2, it's also heavy on parents in terms of what they have to do to supplement, and the government has not put enough funding behind this new curriculum. That is, those are the bones of contention, right? So now looking at this exam, the actual assessment will, however, take place in November next year when the first CBC cohort completes the primary school cycle to join the proposed junior secondary school. According to KNEC Chief Executive David Njengere, the pilot is aimed at preparing the council for the final assessment and identifying possible loopholes for learners who undertake the actual test. Okay, so basically to see how they would fare or how it would be carried out in November next year. Right? It is important because it is the first time such an assessment under the CBC will be administered. We want to test whether the tools we have prepared are good enough to give us the kind of results we expect, or do we need to recalibrate them? We will wait until we can't wait until the learners are in grade 6.
It makes sense. It makes sense to do the mock now. Remember, these learners also did the evaluation when they're in grade 3.
Yes.
So they're already getting used to this kind of assessments that they're being subjected to. So that is one. I think the issues of the cost and not everybody getting to understand what exactly should be happening with CBC is still the big one. Like you said, how much investment has been put into making everybody understand what is expected of the CBC, especially the teachers. The story, remember, the Standard has been carrying a special report on CBC. So today's is the reasons why the CBC is driving into headwinds. And it's talking about teachers. But it's now emerging that teachers make avoidable mistakes that make learning expensive to parents and assignments complicated for children. Parents are also on the spot for failing to be involved in their children's learning by questioning teachers accused of going overboard. KICD says most teachers have failed to be reactive in their interpretation of the curriculum designs. Okay? According to KICD Director Charles Ongondo, the curriculum designs have what we call suggested learning activities in different learning areas, which should be applied according to the school's contexts. Not now, Ati, because there's music instrument, go and make a musical instrument. Contextualize it. This means teachers must understand the specific learning outcomes expected of each lesson strand and come up with creative, practical ways to enable children understand what they were taught.
Right.
The PS who's in charge of implementation of the curriculum, Fatuma Chege, says a teacher must be creative to know skills that need to be developed. They must know ways they can use to teach a similar skill without overloading parents. And this is something teachers are already taught. In teachers training, you're already taught
how to be creative.
How to be creative and how to look at this is the outcome that's expected. What route shall I use? She goes on to say, the skill of cleanliness, for example, can be taught without everyone going to the market to slash and sweep. Oh, it's cleanliness. We saw in the example that we were given when we were being trained about CBC, it was about cleaning. So this is the only thing we know. Class, let's go to the market.
All of us.
All of us. And collect garbage. Because this is how we were trained during CBC sensitization. So teachers are being told, come on, just be creative. Okay? Cleanliness, you can teach cleanliness in very many other ways. You don't have to get out of class to go.
So then that's it. The onus lies on, each individual as a teacher to use their creativity to do this. But it would seem as though what's happening now is that a blanket approach is being used for this. That, okay, this is what the curriculum says. That's exactly what we're going to do without taking into consideration that maybe your kids in that particular class, either one, it doesn't make sense for them or they don't have the necessary materials to fulfill that particular assignment.
Yeah.
So being creative with what your people actually have.
In your context.
In the context.
Look at what works, what doesn't work. So, for example, they're saying at the curriculum designs, there's environmental activities. One of the learning areas is weather and the sky. The curriculum design says this topic alone is expected to have 10 lessons. By the end of all the lessons, under its specific learning outcomes, children are expected to describe the appearance of the sky during the day and at night. Teachers' task is coming up with a practical learning experience to make children achieve the set outcomes. So, a possible suggested learning experience from the teacher would be asking the parents to help the child observe the sky at night. A parent only needs to be there as the child is making the observation and perhaps creating a safe environment. This is according to the KICD boss, Professor Ongondo. The child will then give feedback to the teacher on what they saw at night. However, some teachers have misinterpreted this by coming up with crazy activities. Some teachers have failed to correctly interpret the curriculum designs, opting for expensive learning activities that cost parents. If children are in urban areas where they have access to computers or phones and the internet, then teachers can provide activities relevant to them. But if a child is in the village where there are no computers, the designs of activities on the equivalent of downloading, and this may mean drawing, molding, or using available materials such as newspapers. Whereas a child in town or in urban setting would download a house, the other child in the village or slum could take clay and mold a house or use sticks to make one on a piece of paper. Teachers just need to be creative. That's what the curriculum bosses are saying. KICD boss is saying, this is what you need to do. Remember, the person who came up with this curriculum is now the PS for basic education. The person who was in the technical team of the curriculum is the PS for the implementation of this. Yeah. Professor Ongondo was also instrumental in this. And they're looking back and they're wondering,
why can't we just do this? We're not asking you to fit in a straight jacket.
It's not rocket science. Just use your creativity. If you've been taught in a teacher training college what learning outcomes are and how you get there, come on, apply them. 28 minutes to 7. Shall we take a break? Let's do that and see how the roads are looking like, and then we'll be looking at more headlines. Good morning. Good morning, guys. Is CT still missing from the CT? Yes. He is. And Robert Samsa is in Ghana. A very good morning to you, Robert.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. SpiceFM.
It's getting hot in here.
oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period.
All those bribes, how much they are getting per year, how much inconvenience they are causing, as much as you call it a small case, it's worth it to be convicted.
The truth is, we are a tribal nation. Because if we were not tribal, and I want to go back to this, you cannot continue walking around with a mug which is clean outside and it's rotten inside.
We have become a fuliza country. We have mortgaged our country because of debt.
You've got one chef working and the assistant chef wakati anatakana koroge unga nini hayuko.
This is the Situation Room. The only way
Okay,
to
so
start
the traffic
your
on
day.
Mombasa Road this morning, that's already started to build up, getting into the city. We're looking at it also spilling over to other parts of the city. Outer Ring this morning also looks quite clogged. It's been behaving well for the past few days, but now it looks like it's building up some. It's also building up on the thicker superhighway as you're getting into the city. What to watch out for. Langata Road also coming out of Westlands. This started really early this morning, and it looks like it's going to be there for some time. Jogo Road as well, heading towards the city, looks like it's building up, especially around the train station. Landys Road, not too bad, spilling over into the CBD. Traffic is still picking up this morning. Now is the time to get out before you get stuck. We'll take a look in about half an hour and see what it looks like. But for now, it looks pretty good. You should be able to get where you're going without too much of a headache. But as we know, things on the streets can change in a flash. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. That's how you can get in touch and let us know where you might be stuck or where you find an easy breezy route. Text on 40127.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Okay, it's 25 minutes to 7, Kenya's biggest conversation. In the Situation Room with you this morning is Eric Latif and Nduoko. Kalonzo Musyoka says if you make him president, he'll offer free education.
Ugh, for crying out loud.
In Laikipia County, moving on swiftly, armed bandits who have terrorized residents of Laikipia West constituency for over a month yesterday launched a daring daylight attack at Mirigwit village, moments after security personnel began an operation. The gang struck exactly an hour after the Rift Valley Regional Commissioner George Natembea launched the operation at Olmoran Trading Center. Journalists who are interacting with residents at Mirigwit village, which is 2 kilometers from the trading center, came under heavy gunfire from the bandits who were hiding in thickets. The attackers stormed Mirigwit Primary School, which had been closed earlier, and set ablaze at least 3 classrooms before a contingent of police arrived. As the residents took cover in nearby bushes, the police officers exchanged fire with the bandits who were shooting from within the thick vegetation around the school for at least an hour before they retreated. 1 hour engaging police officers. Listen, this is not a small thing.
Nope.
This is not ati nani amekuja? PC amekuja. Anaenda wapi? Mirigwit. Sawa.
Give him a few minutes.
Ako wapi? Ako Mirigwit. Sawa. Let's go to Mirigwit.
As in, we're bringing it to you.
Where is he going?
We're going where he's
the
going.
regional commissioner is coming to Mirigwit. We are going to Mirigwit. Anaongea. Ameanza kuongea. Amemaliza. Waka moto.
Imagine.
This is not a small thing. And then they engage that security operation that has been launched. They engage the police officers for over an hour. Firing.
Torching a school. Basically saying, look, this is it. Look, the forces behind these people are as resilient, if not more, than the security forces. Let's just be honest about it. That the message that is being passed is not that we can just bring about any kind of turmoil, that we are trying to say something more, that this is the place that we want to be and we're not afraid to fly it in your face. And you've allowed it to fester all this time until now it is blowing up. They're not even afraid. They are not afraid. Just like you're saying, where you're going, we will come. You want to come and say that you've brought in security, we will come. The message that we have, it must be sent. That's what they're saying. And I'm just watching them What was the answer to the torched school yesterday? What was the answer to these individuals and what they did after Natembeya had left? What was the answer from government? Was there an answer? Eric, do you mean to tell me that these individuals, where they are, they cannot be found?
In this Kenya? So George Natembeya has said very many things. First, he said these guys are heavily armed. We are engaging them in soft power to ensure they leave without casualties. To them, they think the government is weak. We shall, however, use all means available to flush them out. That's what he said.
That's what Kibicho said the day before.
I urge the residents to abide with the curfew and allow security officers to do their patrols. We don't want innocent people to be caught up in fire exchange between officers and the bandits. Laikipia has been having relative peace until 3 weeks ago when we had a major security operation in Kapedo. The heat became too much for the bandits who fled Baringo and are now reigning terror in Laikipia. The attacks extended to Olmoran division in Laikipia West. The problem has been compounded by more herders coming from Isiolo and Samburu counties. All of them are armed. The disturbed area falls under conservancies and other land privately owned by individuals. We now have attackers claiming that the land belongs to their ancestors. Blah, 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 blah. On Monday, the National Security Council met, and just want to read what was the statement by the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government after the meeting of the National Security Council. So first of all, again, the structure. There's a National Security Advisory Committee. That's just a technical advisory committee. And then there's the National Security Council. It's established by the Constitution. Who sits in this council? The Chief of Defense Forces, that is the head of Kenya's military. The Inspector General of Police, that's the head of Kenya's police service. The Director General of the National Intelligence Service, that's the man in charge who knows everything that's happening, even where cows are born. He knows. The Intelligence Service Director knows everything. Those three. We have their civilian supervisors, the Cabinet Secretary for Defense, Cabinet Secretary for Interior, and the Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs. And then we've got the political heads of the country, the President and the Deputy President. 8 members sit in the National Security Council.
Yep.
Those 8, we don't know about the Deputy President. So let's say the 7 met on Monday. This council is the one that basically sits. And if they decide, the problem in Kapedo is actually coming from Somalia. We are launching war with Somalia.
Right.
Kenya goes to war with Somalia.
They make a decision. These 8 can make that decision.
They basically say, Kenya goes to war. Kenya goes to war. They sat down to discuss not Somalia, not Ethiopia, not South Sudan, not Uganda, not Tanzania, not any of our neighbors.
Kenya.
But Kenya, Laikipia, citizens of the country, armed illegally. The National Security Council, after its meeting, they released this statement that they held a meeting at State House, Nairobi, to review the security situation in parts of Laikipia County, especially in the Laikipia Nature Conservancy and its environs. During this meeting, the council noted that the area has continued to witness insecurity as a result of rampant cattle rustling arising from competition for water and pasture, as well as a surge in illegal gun ownership, which has escalated the violence. Given the deteriorating security situation, the National Security Council, chaired by His Excellency the President, has issued the following directives. Okay? Laikipia Nature Conservancy and its environs are immediately declared a disturbed area and therefore a security operation zone. The top decision-making organ in the country on matters security has said this area is a disturbed area. 2, a security operation commences immediately to flush out all the illegal occupants of the Laikipia Nature Conservancy and its environs, with a dusk to dawn curfew being declared with immediate effect, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew. 3, all leaders, including politicians, businessmen, public officers, and others who have illegally moved their livestock into the conflict zone, to remove the same within the next 48 hours.
Okay.
Now, that's where I had an issue. The fact that the National Security Council sat and they decided to address politicians, businessmen, and public officers who have illegally moved their livestock, it means that the head of NIS has intelligence of which politician, business person, and civil servant has illegally taken their livestock to this area. They know. They know them by name. Okay? But they gave them 48 hours.
To remove
Well, a dusk to dawn curfew starts immediately. You guys...
We're giving you 2 days to move your...
Within 2 days, please go. We know it's illegal, we understand. But you see, Mheshimiwa,
just move.
Just move, please.
So that we can,
within the next 2 days. That statement, the third part of that statement for me tells me the National Security Council knows who's causing the violence in this area.
This is what I'm saying. They know who's causing the violence.
Who's causing the violence. They are just playing around with them and giving them time, and trying to negotiate with them while people are being killed.
This directive is window dressing, Eric. That's what it is. That inside it's absolutely dirty, but you're saying, all right, let's put a nice drape on the window and make sure that it looks nice from the outside. It doesn't. It looks terrible. This looks terrible. That you're not until... Do you realize that even with that statement, that the issue is not being addressed?
No.
It's not.
Natembea was there.
The issue is not being addressed.
With a few police officers.
People are dying. Schools are being burned. Today. Clockwork. Today. Watch the next thing that will happen. It's getting worse and worse by the minute. Today, something else will happen. Then we'll be fed this again. And I will say it again. The people that are being attacked, the children that are being attacked, the danger that is being posed, the threat that is being initiated against people are not foreigners. It's not in another country. This is in Kenya. This is in Kenya. These are Kenyans who are suffering this.
Yep.
But then we're looking
caused by fellow Kenyans.
Yes.
Who are known.
You know who they are. You know who the perpetrators are. You know the reasons behind these attacks. You know that this thing did not start in 2021, that this has been a simmering and festering boil forever, but you still refuse to deal with it. And then you come here and then you give us this window dressing diplomatic speak. People are dying. What are we doing?
So a curfew was imposed immediately, and the administrative officers are telling people, it's okay, even if you're attacked at 6 p.m., there's a curfew, don't leave. Okay? 6 to 6. Stay indoors. Yeah. We are flushing out the bandits. The bandits have said, even us guys are going to obey the curfew.
But after the curfew,
from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., we are not going to attack. During the day,
we'll attack.
We will attack. Si curfew ni usiku. Hatukuji usiku. Sisi tutaattack mchana tu.
And there's nothing you will do.
And you will do nothing. It's 7:15. Let's take this quick break.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution is rotten. It is based on ideals that cannot progress our country forward.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Okay.
So another, not too interesting story, but not too happy. But look, from top student to ISIS butcher, Salim shocks friends and family. A young man, an exemplary student, has shocked many after security agents identified him as one of the leaders of the international terror outfit Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS. Hopes for the second-born to become an icon in the family were dashed after he was recruited into terrorism about 2 years ago. Salim, 27, who was identified as a leader of ISIS in a recent video, is being sought in Kenya after he jumped bail last year in a terror-related case. Salim's father, Mohammed Rashid, has for the first time opened up about his son, saying he was shocked to hear the news. "I don't know where my son is and what he's doing. I really feel bad about it," said the anguished parent. Rashid expressed his disappointment in his son. He was a bright boy. But what is the importance of his stellar performance? How is it helping anyone? It is like I don't have any child by that name. We don't know what he did. What I'm aware of is the terrorism case facing him in court. He got good grades in the KCSE exam, but look at him now and his life. The family says they do not know Salim's whereabouts. His friends, neighbors, and former schoolmates are shocked after seeing him in an undated video showing a person suspected to be him beheading an alleged ISIS traitor. In the almost 5-minute-long video, the terrorists are seen with a machete shouting in Swahili and Arabic that traitors must be killed. They were all wearing military fatigues and armed with machetes and rifles. Those who do not know him have little hope of ever seeing him again. His family is not only concerned about his whereabouts, but also that what could happen to him should he show up. According to Rashid, he was ready to educate his son to whatever level he wanted, but he chose a different path, one that has now put the family under the watchful eye of the anti-terror police unit officers and security agencies. His father had sent him to Turkey to study computer engineering after scoring an A- in 2014 KCSE, but that did not work. Here we are today, with no information of his whereabouts. And Salim is one of thousands of young men who are recruited into terrorism. And here it is. Families not knowing where. Remember, we spoke a couple of days ago, actually, about disappearances of young people. This is one of those that sometimes it could be that they've been picked up, but in cases like this now, they just leave. They've been recruited. And here you are seeing him in a video. And many parents in anguish, where did our children go? But it is very real that a lot of young people with promising futures are being recruited in this manner. And here you are, terrorist group which causes horror in different parts of the world. And then you find that your son is a member of that. It would be a shocker, don't you think?
Yeah. This is it's a shocker, yeah.
Where do you start from? And the family being harassed on a daily basis. Where is your son? Where is your son?
Yep.
You have no idea.
You have no idea yourself where your son is.
Yeah.
You don't know exactly what happened. How did he turn? From a top student to now being linked to ISIS.
Yeah.
Okay. There was that story that we were talking about, the impact of COVID on healthcare. The COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, it's on page 10 of The Nation this morning. Let me just go straight there instead of looking at what they're saying in the headline. Where is page 10? Nation does not have page 10. It has.
It's after page 9.
Okay. The COVID-19 pandemic has exposed the country's expensive healthcare, leaving patients and their families to bear the brunt of huge medical bills. A survey by Infotrack and the Open Society Initiative for Eastern Africa has shown that the National Hospital Insurance Fund, NHIF, and some private insurance providers backed out when Kenyans needed the most. This leaves the universal health coverage limping. The survey shows that 5 out of 10 Kenyans dig into their pockets to get COVID treatment as the disease is not covered by insurance providers. With only 20% of Kenyans having access to a form of medical insurance, many have been hard hit financially during the pandemic. Health Rights Programs Manager at the Open Society, Agri Aluso, yesterday said the poor are likely to suffer the most as a result of a flawed health system. You know, I'm looking for that part where it says what the other half are using.
How the other half are paying for COVID with insurance?
Yes.
It's not clear. Half of Kenyans pay out of pocket for COVID-19 treatment. Are we sure that the other half are being paid, or the other half are accessing insurance for COVID treatment? Because I know a lot of people who are under insurance who the insurance does not cover COVID and they've had to pay out of pocket. So where did these people come from? Or where did these people go, rather?
Okay.
No. The report shows that 2 in 5 Kenyans, right, helped in either donations or fundraisers for coronavirus-related expenses. They contributed through personal cash donations. COVID has taught the country that we must invest in public health, but it doesn't talk about where this other half of these individuals who access medical help get it from? I'd say that number is much more than 50%.
Unless, okay, I'm looking at it from the other angle. The implication here being that half of the country has contributed in one way or the other for the treatment of COVID. Not for themselves, but for somebody.
Others.
It's basically become a communal cost.
Okay.
And that's why now we come into the report saying how 1 in 5 Kenyans helped someone close to them to clear COVID medical bills.
So we're not talking about necessarily going into hospital and getting
Cash
treatment
donations,
for yourself.
40%, Harambees, 35%, WhatsApp collections, 13%, M-Changa, 10%. Because clearly the thing is, insurance companies, most of the insurance companies not covering
not
COVID.
covering COVID.
NHIF is not covering COVID. So you're hospitalized with COVID. Well, unless you're a public servant who is in a different NHIF cover, those ones are getting COVID cover from NHIF. So we can say the other half. I just don't understand. All I know is that for sure, very many people, ordinary Kenyan, fall sick today, diagnosed with COVID. That cost is going to be your cost. You will go and find a way to pay directly. This is going to be your cost. And that's why people are talking about all these M-Changa WhatsApp groups, very many cash donations. You're constantly looking for ways in which you basically have to pay for COVID treatment. And it is a serious thing in the country. It's very, very, very big. Every day you have like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 Harambees to contribute to. Another story here at the back page of The Nation, which is also covered elsewhere today in the papers, is Chief Justice Martha Koome has reviewed court fees a few months after the National Treasury widened the judiciary's financial resource gap, cutting its budget from 18 billion shillings in the last financial year to 17.9 billion shillings. The judiciary's digital case filing system has since been updated to reflect the new changes to the charges, but lawyers are complaining that figures on the system are erroneous while some entries are missing. Some members of the legal fraternity have also raised concern over steep charges for filing some matters and documents. So what are the charges that you'll now be paying? Court library membership and annual subscription from 500 to 1,000 bob. Any type of application at the High Court except on criminal matters. So any other application apart from criminal matters, previously it was 750, the new fee is 1,500, double. Registration of arbitration awards at the Environment and Lands Court, previously it was 2,250, it has gone up by close to 4 times, 4.5 times, 10,100. Newly introduced charges, notary's public annual renewal. You're a notary's public, 500 bob every year. You go to the Environment and Lands Court with a certificate of urgency, 2,250. You file a notice of appeal to the Court of Appeal filed at the Economic Crimes Division, 450. Court collection fees on deposits and security for costs, 1,500. So there are very many new fees. In the new schedule that came into effect on the 1st of September, filing of any type of application is now going up. So this is what the Chief Justice has basically done. She has scrapped the 100 fee set by her predecessor for filing of a response to notice of appeal, known as notice of address. However, she has introduced a new fee for filing of applications and a certificate of urgency at the Environment and Lands Court, at the High Court's Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Division. The CJ has introduced a fee of 450 for filing of a notice of appeal. These are new costs, and you can see basically they've just been told you need to also find your own ways of raising revenue, own source revenue. We'll be having the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya in the Situation Room tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Tuning, we'll ask her to clarify on some of this. Whether this has an impact on accessing justice for the ordinary mwananchi.
Right.
Whether this will also now become a barrier for accessing justice.
Because if you're going to pay higher, then you say, okay, am I going to pay more?
Yeah.
Am I going to bother filing this case?
Yeah. Or does it mean something else? Maybe it still gives an opportunity for the ordinary Kenyan to be able to access justice. She'll be launching a new strategic vision and direction in the coming days. And I think her focus is trying to make sure that more and more people can access justice. More and more ordinary Kenyans can access justice. That don't look at the judiciary and see the judiciary as this one organ that's really withdrawn from the people. So these costs and these higher fees and charges, what does it mean? What do they mean to that? Keep it right here. In the next hour, we want to have a conversation with the leadership of Laikipia County. We'll be joined by Laikipia Governor Derito Muredi shortly. We'll also be seeking to speak to one of the MPs of Laikipia, maybe Laikipia North MP Sarah Korere, who will be speaking to us as well. What's happening in Laikipia? Why are we seeing people being displaced? Because now this has moved from, it's not issue of pasture. It's not conflict over pasture. It is direct cause for displacement of people. You're torching their homes, you are torching their school, you're basically telling them vacate this area.
Yeah.
So it's moved from, what we were saying, it's conflict over pasture and grazing lands, and that
it's
one
moved from
angle.
that, yeah.
There's the angle of displacement of people, and you've got to look at that from the lens of next year is a general election. Does this have any dimension to that? Kenya's biggest conversation, it continues. In the room with you this morning is Eric Latif and Ndu Oko. CT is not in the city. Hopefully he'll be back. He could actually join us tomorrow for this conversation with the Chief Justice. Let's see whether he'll be feeling up to it. Whether he'll be feeling sufficiently philanthropic
to join us.
Grace us with his presence for this important conversation or not. Good morning. It's now 7 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. The Interfaith Council has registered its dissatisfaction with the political class, terming them as super spreaders of COVID-19. Head of the council, Archbishop Anthony Muheria, has asked politicians to demonstrate their love for the country by heeding to the call by the government to ban political gatherings.
We are now pleading as interfaith, as religious leaders, because we believe this country is religious. That is possible to carry on campaigns or popularization through other means other than putting our people at risk. We are calling to your conscience and your heart that you please plead, you please take up the life of our people seriously. Please don't enter a matatu that is overcrowded.
Garissa County residents have found relief after the government officially launched a water supply program that would save hundreds suffering from drought in the area. Devolution CS Eugene Wamalwa, who led the launch of trucks that will be used to supply the water to various areas facing water shortages. The 8-week program focuses on the worst affected areas of Mbalambala, Dujis and Fafi. He said that apart from distributing water, they also aim to distribute animal feed in collaboration with several stakeholders in the agricultural sector. This comes as about 3.6 million Kenyans are facing acute hunger.
Mwisho tutakuwa pia, kando na maji ambayo tunazindua siku ya leo, tutakuwa pia tunapeana chakula cha mifugo. NDMA wakiwa hapa, tumekubaliana nao, kule tunapeleka maji haya safi. Tunataka pia chakula cha mifugo kiambatane na haya maji.
Former Prime Minister Raila Odinga has vowed to resign if he fails to deliver on his promises to better the lives of the country's youth. In what confirms he'll be on the ballot in the August 2022 presidential election, the ODM leader said he has the remedy to the ills bedeviling the youth in Kenya, and should it fail to work, he'll pave way for another leader. Raila promised to position Kenya as an ICT and e-commerce hub as a way to make local youth become competitive globally. The ODM leader also said, who was giving a virtual public lecture to University of Nairobi students, tore into Deputy President William Ruto's Kazi ni Kazi narrative, terming it prehistoric.
The event that I failed as a leader to deliver what I promised, I will not invent excuses. I will not change the goalposts. I will do what Mwalimu Nyeri did next door in Tanzania. I will admit that my experiment and dream failed, and I will let somebody else try. People who are promised digital jobs, who are promised knowledge-based economy, who are promised double-digit economic growth, are now being offered wheelbarrows and being told cars in cars. That is fraud. That is a route I promise Kenyans I can never take.
6 police officers who were last week charged with the murder of the 2 Kianjokoma brothers have now asked the court to release them on bail. Through lawyer Dunstan Omari, Omayo Aranga, Shadrack Wambui and Paul Masharia, the 6 separately filed bail applications. Police officers Benson Muthui, Consolata Kariuki, Nicholas Cheriot, Martin Wanyama, Lilian Chemuna and James Mwaniki have challenged their prosecution. They want to be released on bail pending their trial.
We have produced evidence to show that there is no compelling reason to deny the accused people bail. One, we have adduced evidence to still re-emphasize that the 2 young men did jump from the police vehicle. We have attached copies of the photos of the scene of crime.
We have reiterated the presumption of innocence of the 6 police officers. Besides that, we want to see into it that on the 22nd, when the matter is coming up for inter-parties hearing, our application, the sidestepping of Section 387, is hard on priority basis.
And in business, the Auditor General has flagged about 1.58 billion shillings that pensioners are at risk of losing at National Social Security Fund while refusing to give the NSSF's financial statement a clean bill of health. Auditor General Nancy Gadungu said over 890 million shillings has been invested in Imperial Bank and Chase Bank, which collapsed. The Taliban have announced an interim government in Afghanistan, declaring the country an Islamic emirate. The new cabinet, entirely male, is made up of senior Taliban figures, some of whom are notorious for attacks on U.S. forces over the last 2 decades. It will be led by Mullah Mohammed Hassan, one of the movement's founders, who is on a UN blacklist. And in sports, England midfielder Jude Bellingham, 18, has hinted at a possible move to Liverpool, with Reds boss Jurgen Klopp set to raid his former club Borussia Dortmund. Liverpool have also been told to sign 27-year-old Genk and Nigeria striker Paul Onuachu by the Belgium club's sporting director. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
And just like that, it's built up on the Thika Superhighway inbound to the city. And it's all the way far back to Survey. And even beyond that, we're looking at it trickling along, coming from Roysambu. And then heading out, snaking along past the Utali Drift, out towards the Pangani Underpass. And it's going to take some time to get out of this one. Kiambu Road is also piling up. And it's all the way far back as Rock City today. Very slow. Then heading out towards Muthaiga Square. Westlands continues to be jam-packed. And it's not flowing as quickly as you'd like it to. And this means that you have to be careful. Coming off Limuru Road as well, moving very slowly past the village market, trying to head into the city, then using the option of going through Westlands, but then you're going to get stuck, all right? You might want to use the Red Hill Link Road, getting out further into the city to be able to come back in. There's an option for you. Jogo Road is also piling up as it is on Langata Road today, getting out to the city, so let's watch out for this. Industrial area, Lunga Lunga, Likoni, headed out towards Enterprise Road might be an option then to join Mombasa Road if you're coming from the city. So yes, we are in traffic hour. Let's see what it looked like this Wednesday. Nothing major going on right now, just the normal morning musings. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room. The only
It's
way
7
to
minutes
start
after 7. A very good morning to you on this 8th day of September 2021. Happy Wednesday, wherever you tuned in to the Situation Room. We are Nduoko and Eric Latif. City Muga is away. He's out of the city today. He's taken a break, but he will be back shortly. Now, today's proverb, now that City is away, is a Maasai proverb. This week's proverbs are Maasai proverbs. The withered tree will destroy the healthy tree when it falls down. The withered tree will destroy the healthy tree when it falls down. And like yesterday's proverb said, the proverb does not translate itself.
You do.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. There's a Kikuyu one that goes the same way.
Like the withered
I'm
one,
not sure
or
that
the one
it's a
doesn't
proverb.
produce
That one,
itself.
our guest will tell us how that proverb goes. Our guest this hour is Laikipia Governor Nderito Muriithi. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Eric.
Joining us
morning,
on
Ndu.
video link. Good morning, Ndu, he says.
Good morning, Governor.
You well?
How are you?
Very well.
I'm well.
It's good to see you.
Well, it's good to be with you.
We have an issue with your line, Governor. Let's see if that can be sorted. Some slight issue there with your line. Let's see. Yeah, I think we're slightly better. You had the proverb today.
I had the proverb that the proverb cannot interpret itself. Frankly, I'm a bit stumped.
Me too. I've been here since yesterday.
That was yesterday's proverb. It cannot interpret
that
itself.
was yesterday.
Yes.
So what was today?
Today's proverb: the withered tree will destroy the healthy tree when it falls down.
The withered tree will destroy the healthy tree when it falls down.
Yep.
Well, it sort of makes sense. If you look at some of the plants, for example, that are parasitic, they engulf the healthy tree until the healthy tree is no more.
Yeah.
Yes. So I would say something like that. I would say something perhaps like that. But what's your interpretation, Eric? What is the meaning of it?
As that withered tree is going down,
it will.
It destroys the healthy
Destroys
one.
the healthy one.
On its way down as well.
On its way down.
Yes.
On its way down, yeah.
Intentionally or otherwise?
Yes, exactly. Intentionally or otherwise.
I was saying you're going to help us with there's a Kikuyu translation of this. I'm not sure whether that's a proverb. Shunago rokomo. A proverb does not translate itself.
Shunago
rokomo kemenyi akamenya ikiunuo.
My
that
goodness,
proverb
that is
doesn't-
way deeper than the Kikuyu out here in Laikipia. That is way deep.
Right. It basically just says the same thing. You will not be told directly what you need to be told. You'll just read the signs.
Yeah.
There's a lot that's happening in Laikipia, Governor.
Indeed.
Your county has become the focus of insecurity in recent days. It's even made the National Security Council be summoned by the president for a sitting to discuss especially insecurity in Laikipia, in parts of Laikipia County. Parts of Laikipia County have been declared a security zone. A curfew has been imposed in this area. A security operation has been launched. And we have seen death, destruction of property, and displacement of people. From even before you tell us what's happening today, what's been happening in the last couple of days in parts of Laikipia?
Well, you see, Eric, it's not really admitting what I would say is that matters have escalated last week. But the president, for example, goes back 6 months ago, primarily in the Laikipia data province. This is the Kisumu branch. As you know, it's a reasonably wide space of over 100,000. And security personnel have been in that area for more than 6 months. These had followed a spate of attack in areas just slightly south of this place, an area called Kamwenje, an area called Muthui,
Governor, sorry to interrupt you. I think we have a problem with a telephone link. Let's just see if we can call you back and see whether we get a clearer link. Stay on. Just speak to John. We are having on the line is Governor Nderitu Muriithi, the governor of Laikipia County. Remember, Laikipia is where we are seeing all this insecurity. Laikipia North, Laikipia West now in Olmoran, where a security operation has been launched by the government. Yesterday we saw the attack that was launched there where a school was torched. And George Natembeya, the regional commissioner, was in the area and he was supervising this operation. And he says he will be back there and they'll have to see what happens. The National Security Council has declared this security zone, imposed a dusk to dawn curfew, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., and also has instructed leadership of the area who have illegally taken their animals to this particular area. And this is politicians, local leaders, and civil servants who have illegally taken their animals to this area to get the animals out. Now, and they've been given 48 hours to do this. So the question that you ask yourself is, so why have they been given the 48 hours? What happens in the meantime? What was happening yesterday? Do we have enough deployment of security officers into the area? So this is what we want to understand as we continue the conversation. Governor Nderitu Muriithi is on the line. Let's see if this line is clearer, Governor.
Eric, I can hear you as well.
Yeah, this is better. So you were explaining what's been happening.
I was explaining that it is a long-running problem.
Yes.
What you're seeing in the last 1 week is an escalation of issues. But the insecurity on my boundary, the Laikipia boundary with Baringo, has been ongoing for many, many months now. Primarily caused by bandits from Tiati, and security personnel have been at the Cookie Ranch for more than 6 months. But the effectiveness of that operation is a bit in doubt. And now, what happens in conflict, I think, is that the cocktail just becomes more complicated. Now, you spoke to this issue of livestock that is believed to be owned by senior people and is in the Cookie Ranch. I would say that is one slice of the problem. And what that is doing is that then decision makers are conflicted. Orders are issued, but they're not being followed properly on the ground because some of the decision makers themselves are conflicted. So that is one set of issues. The second set of issues is that for maybe 15 months now, Pokot bandits have been raiding inside Cookie's Ranch and areas south of Cookie's Ranch. This is Tindeka, Gedega ward. And in fact, even on the Baringo side, where the Tugen live, and the Tugen had been pushed southwards by the same bandits. So that's another set of problems. Then more recently, there is drought. So Samburu herdsmen had driven their cattle all the way down into Laikipia and parts of Baringo, as well as Pokot. And that creates now a cocktail just ripe for conflict as these animals are being moved up and down. And then the fourth set of issues is what I explained, that there was an immediate spark of violence last week, which related to two persons of Pokot ethnicity who were taken by unknown persons from the Olmoran market. And the Pokot then retaliated by retreating to Amaya, which is on the Baringo side,
and abducting two Kikuyus.
Mm-hmm.
And following to that abduction, and by the way, the whereabouts of these two persons, or actually of all four, the two who had been taken from Pokot side and the two who were taken by Pokot from the Kikuyu side, their whereabouts remain unknown. Now, that led to the killings that happened Thursday into Friday, and into, in fact, Saturday morning. And, of course, the burning of houses, which is quite unusual, even in terms of this long-running conflict. We have not seen the burning of houses until just this last week.
Right. It just seems, Governor, that all of this that has been happening for the longest period, I mean, you talk about 15 months, we're talking about, we saw some of these conflicts happening 5 years ago. In this same area, along the same lines of what you've been talking about, it has been happening for a very long time. And there are those, even within security forces, who will be able to replay the happenings event by event, cause by cause. So it would appear as though, on one side, everybody knows exactly what's going on. Everybody knows who is perpetuating these things, but then is reluctant to do something about it.
Absolutely. We all the political leaders of Laikipia, I think yesterday and the day before, we spoke rather strongly on this issue because we feel that, firstly, let's talk about the immediate and then the long term. Look, it is inconceivable that a small bands or small groups of bandits can burn houses while the security personnel are in the area.
Yep.
Yesterday, we were all on the ground when some bandits were able to get to a classroom and torch it. Now, even though we were able to put out the fire in a particular classroom, so that, the right reporting really is not that the Marygood school was burned to the ground. One classroom was burned, and even then, the classroom is still standing. We were able to put out the fire. But the real issue is that the fact that the bandits can enter that school and set fire in that classroom, whereas security personnel, we are all milling around. They have, armored personnel carriers and things of that kind. There are helicopters in the scene and so on. It's a bit, and what the citizens are asking us, Eric, is this: how many bandits have we captured?
Yes.
Yeah. Because they can see when we are reporting that several citizens have been killed, several police officers have been killed. So they ask us, how many bandits have you killed? How many have you captured? And we have nothing to say for ourselves.
Are you saying nobody has been arrested?
Yeah, no one has been arrested. Nobody has been apprehended.
Not a single bandit has been apprehended.
And how do the security bosses explain this? Is it because these bandits are too tough, too sharp? What is it?
They have no real explanation, Eric, and without really defaming people by naming them. But all the many senior security personnel are on the ground as we speak now.
Yeah.
We haven't managed to they don't have an explanation. But there is also, my view, a timid reaction. It's like we are in a defensive posture. Yeah, we are reacting to what the bandits are doing instead of taking the fight to them.
Yeah.
Right.
On Monday, I really felt upset because myself and just like 3 of officers who were attached to me, we were able to spot the bandits, and we could not persuade the police commanders to reinforce us so that we can take action.
Why?
And then, then later, about 2 hours later, the bandits torched the house.
Okay, just describe that scene as you saw it. When you say that you were able to identify and see the bandits, describe that. What is it? How are they dressed? How did you tell that these are bandits?
You see, okay, two things. Firstly, is the fact that they are youthful fellows. They are carrying AK-47. So when I went to Kisindogo, which is the place where they had burned some houses on Monday, we could see them in the distance. And you can see we are not spying on one another. What's the word I want to see? We are monitoring one another. So you can see they are trying to figure out who we are. And they are darting up and down in the countryside, inside certain bushes there. And we are ourselves on the road past that Kisindogo. And literally, 2 hours later, about 500 meters from where we had seen these individuals, a homestead was torched. Yeah. And I cannot, but yes, Eric.
Sorry, I just wanted to just finish and then I'll ask the question.
Yeah, so, I cannot help but feel a bit disappointed with the reaction, particularly of the police who were on the ground on that day.
Yeah.
Because we really could have done something that would have prevented the torching of that homestead.
Yesterday's case where you were there and, the senior security and administration officers from the region, the county and the region were on the ground. What was happening? What was that event? What was the function that George Natembeya had come to attend?
I don't think he had come to a function as such. Perhaps he had come to see that, the police personnel are doing what they're supposed to do and perhaps reassure the public. Now, as he drove into town and around that Kisindogo, I was, a few kilometers away from there at survey, because with education officials who are looking at the schools that we need to beef up, to post police officers to create confidence. Then we got information that this thing was happening at the school. And yes, officers were there literally within minutes. Even in the video clips, you can see livestock being driven away.
Yeah.
But frankly, you also see like the officers are shooting in the air. So it doesn't look a very...
The report here indicates that there was a 1-hour engagement between the security forces and the armed bandits. Were there casualties? Were there any arrests that was made? Anything?
There were no arrests that were made. And I would say an hour is more than what we witnessed. There was a brief engagement.
Okay.
But there were no casualties on either side.
I'm conflicted here because I'm just putting the pieces together of what you're saying, and then saying that as though security forces or whatever were shooting in the air were not really zeroing in on a target in any way, shape or form. And then hearing that, then putting this against the backdrop that this has been the situation for the longest time. So again, there is a reluctance to quell this violence. There is a reluctance to actually get to the core of this problem. Could this then give way to the rife speculation that these issues are political and that there is someone behind them fueling these attacks, even flying in the face of whatever kind of security can be offered up?
We cannot help but go in that direction. If you look at the statement itself from the Minister for Interior that he made on the night he declared curfew, he spoke to the point of senior politicians and government officers who he says have livestock inside that ranch, and he believes, and I think his senior officers believe, that is part of the reason why the response is timid. That there are people within the system who then are able to, if you will, interfere within the way that the matter is being handled. And we all can see that there is the response is not vigorous enough, and it is not yielding any result. So we cannot help but think like that. Now, our expectation is that perhaps the ministry looks at the command structure in the whole security operation and tries to figure out why is it not as effective. It comes down to a simple thing Eric and Odu. How many bandits have we captured? How many have we killed?
Yeah.
Yet they are killing officers and they are killing civilians.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
We had a conversation with the MP for Laikipia North, Sarah Korere, a couple of weeks ago, discussing the same issue, and she was giving us the experience of what was happening on the ground in Laikipia North. She joins us on the line also, MP Sarah Korere. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us this morning. You also have on the line the Governor of Laikipia, Nderitu Muridi. You can say hello to him.
Hi, Governor. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Mheshimiwa. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Now, Ms. Korere, what we were discussing with you when you were here last time was the same issue of insecurity and calling on the government and the security agencies to take action. Weeks later, no action has been taken in terms of apprehending or stopping the violence, but we've seen words and action in terms of meeting and declarations from the national government. Are you happy with what you see on the ground?
Oh my God. I'm so disappointed. I'm frustrated. I'm desperate. Actually, what we are seeing on the ground is a lot of laxity from our security officers and a lot of lethargy, if I may say.
And when you look at it from, the top security organ, the National Security Council, met under the chairmanship of the president to discuss this particular situation, and they have imposed the curfew. They have also declared this a security zone, and security operation has been launched. Why would you, even what the governor is telling us, the people on the ground are asking, so why are there no arrests? Why is there no disarmament that's taken place so far? From your perspective, Mheshimiwa Korere, why is this not happening?
Well, I would say why it's not happening. It's because our security agencies on the ground are not giving the right information to, those people in Nairobi. But I'm sure now from the wide coverage, I'm sure even the president now is getting the real thing on what is happening on the ground. Like if I may just give you an example of what happened in Nyeri yesterday. We actually, the three of us, myself, the senator, and the MP for Laikipia West, we actually arrived at the scene where the school was torched before Natembea, who was just, he was in the same center with us. And we kept on telling him, Mheshimiwa, the bandits are torching a school. Can we do something? And Natembea taking his sweet time. I don't know what kind of meetings he was doing. And by the time we went to the school, and we thought probably there was some exchange for like 30 minutes between the police and the bandits. And then from nowhere, the bandits started shooting us from behind.
Okay, so Mheshimiwa, I'm just, and I've said the same thing just now to Governor, and I want to ask again here. If we are seeing a situation like this, very clear that there is reluctance to do something about a situation that is happening right in front of our eyes, then are we saying that that the security agents know who is behind this but don't want to do anything about it?
Just like my governors alluded to, the press release that was released by the cabinet secretary, he want senior politicians with cattle in Laikipia Nature Conservancy, government officers, and other very senior people to move their cattle. And so, you don't need rocket science to know what is happening. The bullets those bandits are using, they don't get it for free. It's bought. And they're very expensive.
Sure.
And like yesterday, they fired like more than 100 bullets within 20 minutes. And they are firing these bullets every night, every day. Who is supplying these bullets to them? Of course, the cattle barons. the owners of those cattle. These are not small men. So I want to believe from where I sit that even some government agencies are behind this. They are in bed with the bandits.
If I could maybe just add, Eric.
Yes, go ahead.
I think you had George, the regional commissioner, Natembea, when he was addressing press yesterday, speaking to the kind of weaponry that the bandits have. And he spoke of one particular kind of weapon, M16, which is not really a very common weapon, you know. So the points we are making to you are the same, that look, the minister himself says, senior politicians, senior officers and so on, to which we assume he knows them by name. And yes, and we then expect some action. We were also a bit disappointed yesterday with a meeting that was taking place there in the office of the president, in Harambee House. Because the individuals who seem to have been invited to that meeting, I would think are the same ones he is talking about. So why is he having a parley with them? You know, so there are some really serious questions that require answering. And for a moment, if you allow, Eric, I think we should also talk about the long term. What should be happening in the long term?
In the long term, yes. I'd like us to come to that after this break. Let's take a quick break. It's 26 minutes to 8 o'clock. We have on the line Governor Nderitu Murray, the Governor of Laikipia County, and MP for Laikipia North, Sarah Korere, discussing the insecurity situation in Laikipia County and what's happening. This has been declared a security zone. So are the bandits, are the people who are attacking people, those who are torching schools, torching people's homes, displacing people and killing, are they being dealt with? And then what needs to happen to make sure that this doesn't happen again? Let's take this quick break. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room on SpiceFM.
Have you seen them? Am I like?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Everyone in Wasingishu was asking me what channel is SpiceFM.
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you.
What a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you, and it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero in this room here. Very Swiss temperatures.
.9 Spice FM, Mombasa.
Cloudy conditions
The weather
in Nairobi
with
at 15, highs of 22 and lows of 13 today. In Nakuru, sunny conditions at 14, highs of 25. We'll see highs of 21 in Nyeri at 14. Light rain this morning. Looking out into Kisumu, it's raining at 20, highs of 28 and lows of 18. Kakamega is partly sunny at 20, highs of 28 and lows of 16 today. In Mombasa, it's raining at 24, highs of 29. Light rain also in Malindi at 26 with highs of 29. It'll come down to lows of 25. All right, looking out of Kenya, Kampala, heavy thunderstorms this morning at 19, highs of 26 and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam is raining now at 23. It'll go to highs of 30 and lows of 22. Lagos, mostly clear at 25, highs of 29 and lows of 25. And Kinshasa is clear at 23. That'll be the low for today, getting to a warm high of 34.
Spice up your life.
In the middle of the city is where it is this morning. We're looking at a lot of traffic when all roads are leading into the CBD today. Coming off Jogo Road is actually quite heavy as you get towards the Kamkunji roundabout. That's feeding off from Landis. And then Langata as well is building up. Ngong Road, a little bit of traffic in the pockets here and there getting to the City Mortuary roundabout. Going to continue for some time. Langata Road is also quite thick as well. Uhuru Highway, all the way from the Nyeri Stadium roundabout out to Westlands and in as well, continues to build up. Industrial area also is quite a thing this morning. Mombasa Road, as usual, clogs up some. Don't forget the service lanes are being worked on today, so that impacts traffic quite a lot. Let's take a step out of Nairobi and into Mombasa, into town. Not an issue this morning. Just remembering that you can use the ferry, and we're reminding you to use the M-Pesa and not cash. *712# is what you should use this morning. All right, let's see what it looks like in your neck of the woods. Are you stuck somewhere? Let us know. We have alternatives if you get stuck. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
22 minutes to 8 o'clock. Kenya's biggest conversation continues. In the Situation Room today is Eric Latif Nduoko. CT Muga Tulitulitu is asking, where is CT? CT has taken some time off. It's a break, just a couple of days off. He'll be back shortly. On Monday, the president chaired the National Security Council, and they were discussing the security situation in parts of Laikipia County, especially in the Laikipia Nature Conservancy and its environs. We know that there have been incidences of insecurity, displacement of people, deaths, and also torching of people's houses and property. During the meeting, according to Fred Matiang'i, the CS, the National Security Council noted that the area has continued to witness insecurity as a result of rampant cattle rustling arising from competition for water and pastures, as well as a surge in illegal gun ownership, which has escalated the violence. Given the deteriorating situation in the county, the National Security Council, chaired by the President, made the following directives, issued these directives, three of them. One, that the Laikipia Nature Conservancy and the environs are immediately declared a disturbed area and therefore a security operation zone. Two, a security operation commences immediately to flush out all the illegal occupants of the Laikipia Nature Conservancy and its environs with a dusk to dawn curfew imposed 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And number three, all leaders, including politicians, businessmen, public officers, and others who have illegally moved their livestock into the conflict zone, to remove them from there within the next 48 hours. A dusk to dawn curfew was declared immediately. A security operation was ordered immediately. Those who have moved their cattle were given 2 days to move them out. Now, who is the National Security Council? It basically is the top organ formed by the Constitution to discuss and look at matters of security in the country. Who sits in it? One, the head of Kenya's Defence Forces, the Chief of Defence Forces. The head of Kenya's Police, the Inspector General of Police. The head of Kenya's Intelligence, that's the Director General of the National Intelligence Service. Their civil supervisors, the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Interior, the Cabinet Secretary for Defense, the Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs, the Attorney General, and the political leadership of the country, the President and the Deputy President. So these are serious people who sit in a room and they discuss security in an issue. Now, I want to come back to what we were discussing with Governor Nderitu Mureithi and the MP for Laikipia North, Sarah Korere, because we're discussing this issue. First of all, as we now go into looking at what needs to happen in the future, do you agree with the assessment that was made by the National Security Council that this violence and insecurity is in the area is arising from what they said, and I quote them verbatim, competition for water and pastures, as well as a surge in illegal gun ownership in the area? Are those the two main reasons why we have insecurity? Let's start with you, Governor.
Well, Eric, let me ask you, what does the torching of houses got to do with pasture?
I don't see the link.
Where is the link? I mean, I'm a layman here, Eric, but where is the link between a school or somebody's house and pasture?
I don't see the link myself.
I don't see it. There are a couple of other things I really want to ask you to put on the table, Eric. The first one is this. It's okay to declare a curfew, but do you really think these bandits are following that curfew?
It's inconsequential to them, it would appear.
I think they are, Governor. I think they are now attacking during the day. So they are observing the curfew.
The curfew is inconsequential.
Yep.
Secondly, Eric, and I've had occasion to discuss this with Dr. Matiang'i.
Yep.
There's a policy about the police reserve that Dr. Matiang'i instituted when he came into office in the security docket, which was that he believed we should be de-escalating, we should not be adding police reserve. Now, what happened is that the law-abiding fellows of Laikipia, retimed the weaponry that had been issued to the police reserve. So we are sitting ducks. The bandits did not obviously give up their arms, but we now, that's the internet of all the way from the Zeka ward, now Olmoran ward, where is the center of issues right now, as well as further north in Consortia. The law-abiding citizens returned this weapon. And I know government, we had actually trained the KPR so that we could beef up security. But now we are sitting ducks because we have no weaponry, we have no equipment.
Yeah.
So I think the long and the short of it is that there is more beyond the competition of pasture, and we really would have urged the National Security Council to reconsider that decision of denying us KPR, because then we have no ability to defend ourselves.
Sure.
And the bandits have weapons.
That's very true. MP Sarah Korere, do you agree with what the governor is saying? And in your own interpretation of this situation, what is escalating it?
Well, I agree with what my governor is saying, and I totally want to disagree with the findings of these other men in NSAC. I say men because I'm sure there's no woman in that city.
There are two women. There's
oh really?
The Cabinet Secretary for Defense and Foreign Affairs.
Yes. Okay, I want to disagree with what they are saying, because competition for pasture and water is just a narrative. It's neither here nor there. And why I say this is because, number one, if these people are looking for pasture and water, assuming that where they come from there is no pasture and water, then why would they come steal our cows and goats? Where are they taking them? I mean, if it's really water and pastures they are looking for, why would they kill people? Then recently they've been torching houses, and now they are torching schools. And from where I see, when they torch public institutions, it is a way of ensuring that these people don't come back to settle in their farms. Because once you torch a school, then these people will be forced to look for schools elsewhere to take their children. So that's an assurance for the bandits that these people are not coming back here. So I wouldn't really buy that idea that there is competition for pasture. My governor can confirm this.
Right.
Parts of Laikipia North, especially Mugogodo, is actually the hardest hit by drought. And 90% of the occupants are pastoralists, but none of them is causing mayhem to their neighbors, and they neighbor big ranches like Loldaiga, Oljogi, Olenaisho, but there is no issues there. So actually the contributing issue is illegal firearms. Now people feel like, we can walk on top of your heads and do whatever we want because we are a government unto ourselves.
So, Mheshimiwa Korea, it's obvious that these bandits, as they are being called, are not fighting or they are not perpetrating this violence on their own. Who is?
I said that earlier, and I will say it again. If you go by what the minister is saying, and if you go by the people who we know, they met yesterday at Harambe House, who are purportedly the owners of, those cattle. So why would a very senior civil servant move his cattle illegally into a private land? This is an educated fellow. It's not the pastoralists from the bushes. We say they're ignorant. Why would a politician, a person who knows that private property is private property and it should be protected, why would they move their cattle illegally into those ranches? And then the people who are with these cattle are actually moving them there by the barrel of the gun. Then who is providing them with these guns? To protect which cows? And who is providing them with the ammunition? This is something that anybody can see very clearly.
So who are we saying? Because then we can all be, everybody who's in this conversation can be held to some kind of blame. If you're saying, Mheshimiwa, that you know who it is, are we afraid to say we know who it is? We say we know who it is. Everybody knows who it is, but it's some unspoken thing that nobody wants to come out and say, look, these are the individuals. This is who it is. These are the reasons why Kenyans' lives are being lost on a daily basis, because that is what is happening here. It's not just a classroom being burned down. It's lives and livelihoods being lost. It's houses, 50, what was it the other day? 50 to 100 homes being torched in a single day. Today, we don't know. It could get worse. But we say that we know the names of these individuals who are doing or perpetrating these things, but we're keeping those cards to our chest. For what reason?
Well, I can only say this. We have given government agencies enough information because even other systems have. But, we also feel we are exposing ourselves. And from where I sit, and my governor can confirm from the other side, actually, if there is one person in Laikipia whose head has a price tag on it, it's me. For one simple reason that I've mobilized all Laikipians, regardless of their ethnic background, and I've brought people together. And for the last 4 years, I've worked so hard, to make sure that we facilitate those people who run away from their farms to.
Governor Mureithi, I'm like a dog with a bone on this, but so there seems to be then apprehension or fear to even name names of individuals who might be behind this. What would be the problem with that? Fear of even, an individual's life being in danger? You've heard what MP Korea has said just now. There's a price tag on her head as well for how verbose she's been about this. It seems that it's more than just bandits.
Yes, I think Udu, that the honourable member and all of us, obviously in naming persons exercise a certain amount of restraint because, the information we have generally also needs to be corroborated and so on. But there can be no doubt in your mind, Udu, that Tiati, for example, the constituency Tiati has remained a major source, and repeatedly intelligence information shows that resources, including perhaps CDF and other resources, are used in the process of arming people. There can be no doubt that previous member of Laikipia North had a lot to do with the challenges we were having there. A lot of information is available to the security agencies. Now, if you're looking for specific names, you should look to a meeting that took place in OP yesterday. Just yesterday. And ask the senior guys in OP, why were they meeting with those people? Yeah, because there was a meeting involving several individuals, quite a number of them senior persons.
Senior persons in
including
government.
ones we are alluding to. And you should ask Daktari, or the two Daktaris who run Interior, about that? And why is it that action never seems able to be taken? We had been assured going back a year and a half ago that some of these individuals would be arrested and arraigned in court. But it never happened.
They're still being welcomed into Harambee House for meetings.
The bigger questions to ask is who vetoed the arrest of some of these political leaders? So there are some questions you may need to go higher than our pay grade, I think.
Sure. Looking into the future then, Governor, what needs to happen so that we can have long-lasting security and peace and harmonious coexistence of people in all constituencies and wards of Laikipia?
My view is, and we have it on paper jointly, in fact, with Dr. Matiani and his team, we need to see significant investment in Laikipia North and also into Tiati and Samburu. So, for instance, if you look just today, why wouldn't the road from Suguta Mugi through Churo to Tangle Bay and Roruk, why shouldn't that be a priority road to be improved to bitumen standards today as we speak?
How many kilometers is it?
Why wouldn't the road from Olmoran through Salve, Magadi, to Ronyek, why wouldn't we be improving that to bitumen standards as we speak? If you look at the centers themselves, if you look at Suguta, if you look at Churo, if you look at Tangle Bay, if you look at Roruk, in the same way we are investing in Kenya Urban Support Program in other towns, like if you go to Community now, you'll find a vibrant town that is able to create jobs. We must be doing these kinds of things in order to change the long-term aspect of this area.
Yeah.
And this program, in fact, we have an immediate program costed at about 7 billion that we put on the table going back 4 or 5 months ago. And this is what we ought really to be doing. If you look in other parts of Laikipia North, if you look at centers like say Doldol, if you look at Lewaso, if you look at Kemanju, we need to, as government at both levels, to put our money where our mouth is and invest significantly in these spaces in order to create an economic environment that can create jobs.
How much investment, how much of that have you put in place as governor of Laikipia in the last 4 years that you've been governor?
Well, firstly to tell you that we have, as we speak, 4 counties raised nearly 1 billion shillings, about 600 million from the European Union and 400 million from our own resources, which we were using, in fact, to manage the current circumstance of drought. If you look in Sosian, if you look at in Olmoran, for example, you will find that this is where we are focused in our own road improvement program. So most of our equipment for making rural roads and in fact at the moment in Olmoran, trying to make sure that, as I say, we put our money where our mouth is.
Yeah.
But what we need is also for the national government to come to the table.
Looking at the number of people who are now currently facing there's a humanitarian issue unfolding. People have been displaced. They don't have food, they don't have water, they don't have shelter. What is the county government of Laikipia doing to help those that have been affected by this insecurity?
Right now, Eric, about 100 people are sheltered at our polytechnic in Olmoran. And we are providing them, with beddings and food and so on. These are families whose houses were burned. Another similar number are being supported at the Catholic Mission. Now, those ones, the houses are not burned, but because of the nature of the thing, they are not able to stay, obviously, in their homes at night.
Yeah.
And that's the same case with the Deliverance Church. We are just waiting on the security guys to agree, but we have already made up our mind to rebuild those houses for those families. My teams and I were out assessing in the areas we could access yesterday. And we expect in the next day or two actually to begin rebuilding houses so that families can proceed. We also yesterday went through the various primary and secondary schools and came to some agreement with the police service in terms of deployment and things like that. And I'm just going back into Morambi just now to follow up that those things are happening.
Okay. As we conclude the conversation, MP Sarah Korere, what needs to happen in the coming days and weeks so that the people of Laikipia, and especially your constituents in Laikipia North, can feel safe and secure?
Well, I think the immediate thing now is to clear the area, like to seriously flush out these criminals. And because Laikipia Ranching Nature Conservancy has become the hideout for these criminals, unless they completely, flush out these people from Laikipia Nature Conservancy, at the same time make sure that they secure and all the environs of Laikipia Nature Conservancy. This is the whole of Olmoran Division, so that at least people can be facilitated to move back to their homes, because as we mentioned, there are people now camping at the Catholic Mission in Olmoran, there are people camping at the Deliverance Church, there are people at the Polytechnic. So all homes are deserted, 6 schools are closed down, and these are Kenyan children. They will sit the same examination with a child who is going to school every morning in Nanyuki, Nyahururu, and Nairobi, and elsewhere. Sure. So we need to see the government do everything possible to first make sure that normalcy is restored and these people are able to go back to their homes and children are able to go back to school.
Thank you very much. Governor Derita Muriithi, Governor of Laikipia County, and MP for Laikipia North, Sarah Korere. Asanteni sana for joining us this morning. And as you continue dealing with this issue on the ground, we wish you all the best, together with the constituents of Laikipia County. Asanteni.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's the Situation Room. We've been talking to our leaders. Now, the next hour, we ask ourselves, what is it that the public perceives to be ethical leadership in this country? We'll be joined by the leadership of Transparency International Kenya and the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission for that conversation, as we also just, piggyback on this, what's happening in the country in Laikipia North, insecurity. One word from the national government saying this, action on the ground indicating something completely different. Good morning. It's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 FM.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Ubaga. Laikipia North Member of Parliament Sarah Korere says they're experiencing a lot of laxity from security officers on the ground. Korere, while being interviewed on SpiceFM Situation Room, says no arrests have been made on the bandits so far because police officers deployed in the county haven't been giving correct information to the main security officers in Nairobi.
I'm so disappointed, I'm frustrated, I'm desperate. Actually, what we are seeing on the ground is a lot of laxity from our security officers and a lot of less, I think I may say. I would say why it's not happening, it's because our security agencies on the ground are not giving the right information to those people in Nairobi. But I'm sure now from the wide coverage, I'm sure even the president now is getting the real thing on what is happening on the ground.
She further said the school that was burnt down yesterday wouldn't have been torched if police officers acted fast.
Like if I may just give you an example of what happened in Nyeri yesterday. We actually, the three of us, myself, the senator and the MP for Laikipia West, we actually arrived at the scene where the school was torched before Natembea, who was just, he was in the same center with us. And we kept on telling him, Mheshimiwa, the bandits are torching a school. Can you do something? And Natembea in his sweet time, I don't know what kind of meetings he was doing. And by the time we went to the school, and we thought probably there was some exchange for like 30 minutes between the police and the bandits. And then from nowhere, the bandits started shooting us from behind.
The MP's statement is, however, contrary to what Regional Coordinator George Natembea said concerning how fast they responded to the school incident.
Actually, we had just arrived in Olmaran and we were checking the house which was torched last night. When we went back to start having a meeting, in fact, we were still waiting for people to sit down. Then we were told that the school had been set on fire. So we all moved there and we found these people had started a fire in a store within the school. So basically, it's not correct to say that houses were torched today or that the school was razed down. And the response was quick. The officers went there, they found those characters there. There was a brief exchange of fire. They disappeared and the house was not razed down. School wasn't razed down.
Works on the National Expressway is at 60%. The Kenya National Highways Authority has announced and urged Mombasa Road commuters to use the railway service. Motorists using Mombasa Road have been asked to terminate their journey at Syokimau Railway Terminus to the city centre as part of efforts to ease congestion on the stretch that's under construction. The authority further announced the JKIA to Mlolongo section will be restored on September 10th, the Westlands James Gishuru section on September 30th, and the Haile Selassie University of Nairobi roundabout on October 15th. Deputy President William Ruto's supporters now want President Uhuru Kenyatta to come out openly and resolve his differences with Ruto instead of using government institutions to oppress him. The leaders say they are fed up with Ruto's predicament as a high-ranking government official and that time has come for Kenyatta to address the issue. They've listed some of the incidents that marks Ruto's humiliation, for example, being banned from travelling to Uganda, changing his security detail and being barred from attending a church service this Sunday. Led by Mathira MP Rigathi Gachagua and his Kikuyu counterpart Kimani Ichung'wah, they've called on President Uhuru Kenyatta to stop using government units to crack down on his deputy.
Hii watu ya hii serikali wamefika mwisho, wamekwama. Wamejaribu kumpiga huyu naibu wa rais, kumtukana, kumuita mwizi, kumnyang'anya kazi yake, kumnyang'anya askari, kumutesa, kumkataza kwenda Uganda na kila kitu. Sasa wameenda chini, wamestoop so low mpaka wanaanza kufunga barabara na mawe.
When you see you have failed to intimidate some of us as political leaders, mumeenda kwa wafanyabiashara, mumewafinya, mumeharibu uchumi ya Kenya.
The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission has identified the biggest corruption conduits in counties that include use of revenue at source, fraudulent acquisition of public property, payments for works not done, and irregular procurement and recruitment. This is according to EACC's Corruption Risk Assessment Program that aims at identifying and addressing systematic weaknesses, loopholes, and opportunities that can be exploited to perpetuate unethical practices. So far, the assessment has been conducted in 22 counties. And in business, Kenyans are starting this month paying more than double for some court services after the Judiciary revised its fees, raising the cost of litigation. The new fees schedule published by Chief Justice Martha Koome, which took effect on September 1st, shows that a number of costs have been introduced, including charges for lodging of documents, filing of any type of application at the High Court, except on criminal matters, now cost 1,500, up from 7,500. Registration of arbitration awards related to disputes at the Environment and Lands Courts now cost 10,100, up from 2,250. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Right. So you know how we say in Mombasa you should use the ferry, *712#, islands to mainland and vice versa. You can't use cash, right? So in Nairobi, Kenya is saying use the train because now they've added another one so that you don't have to be stuck on Mombasa Road, where today there's a lot of traffic this morning. And looking at that stretch, the normal stretch, in and outbound, interestingly enough, between Sabaki and the SGR, heavy traffic there. So they've added another wagon. So if you can use the train, then you will not be stuck in this traffic and will get less vehicles on the road. This is a suggestion that's being made in and out of the city centre. Can you see how that works for you? Please try and then let us know. All right, there's also some traffic on Jogo Road. Around the Makadara train station as well, we're seeing that traffic. There was traffic that started even before 6 o'clock coming out of Westlands into the CBD. It still continues for now. In the CBD, a lot of traffic as well from the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. From the roundabout to Haile Selassie onto Westlands, in and outbound, that continues. The Thika Superhighway, hot and heavy traffic today, all the way far back beyond Survey, and also joining with Kiambu Road this morning. That's what it looks like, guys. Let us know. Are you stuck somewhere? Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127. Let's keep things moving.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's 8 minutes after 8 on the 8th day of the 9th month of 2021. Kenya's biggest conversation enters the third hour, and we thank you very much for tuning in this morning. We are live on SpiceFM around the country. We are live around the world on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and also our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. We are also live on TV, KTN Home, for the next 1 hour. In the room is Eric Latif, and Ndu Oko. C.T. Muga has taken a break for a couple of days. He'll be back shortly. Today's Maasai proverb. It's a Maasai proverb week this week.
Yeah, we are with you.
Yes. Now that C.T. started promising Mount Kenya proverbs and he couldn't even get one, can produce 5 Maasai proverbs. The withered tree will destroy the healthy tree as it falls down. The withered tree will destroy the healthy tree as it falls down. The wisdom of the Maasai. Yes.
I just keep thinking about all those movies when you say, look, if I'm going down, I'm taking you down with me. So kind of like it's the same thing.
Yes. You're the withered tree, and I'm this healthy one, and you're taking me down with you.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. You cannot be in the presence of witherment and remain healthy.
Yes, that's true. That true. So the ethical tree will be destroyed by the non-ethical tree as the non-ethical tree comes down. And the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission will be left there saying, you see? See? The ethics. And Transparency International Kenya will see, this is what we've been talking about. Fighting corruption and non-ethics in the country. Let's have that conversation with them this morning, all right? Sheila Masinda is the Executive Director of Transparency International Kenya, and Philip Kagushia is the Head of Corporate Communications at the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. They join us via video link this morning. Good morning, Philip. Good morning, Sheila.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Drew.
Good morning.
It's good to have you on the show again today. And this is a continuation of a conversation we had a couple of days back on what is the citizens' perception on ethical leadership in the country. And this is out of a survey that you had conducted as Transparency International Kenya called My Leader, My Choice, Citizens' Perception of Ethical Leadership in the Country. The report details findings of a survey that was conducted by TI to establish the citizens' perception, attitudes, and opinions on ethical leadership as espoused in Chapter 6 of the Constitution, and to understand Kenyans' perception of their role in promoting ethical leadership in the country. You took us, Sheila, through a number of the findings that you had at that point. But let's just, as we continue with this, let's start from a definition, a basic definition. In your own understanding, what is ethical leadership?
Simply, for me, ethical leadership is leadership that is driven by the public interest. It is leadership that does the right thing for the public interest. We know that as leaders, we have various opportunities, to enrich ourselves or to promote, or we get opportunities for self-aggrandizement. But when you're a leader in that opportunity, the first person that you should think about is the public. That person who has put you in office and not yourself, or you should not be driven by vested interest. For me, that is simply what ethical leadership is.
Okay. And to the man who's been given the job to internalize what Kenyans were saying in the Constitution and in the laws, and then speaking about them as the head of corporate communications, Philip Kagushia, what is ethical leadership from the EACC perspective and the legal perspective?
Thank you, Latif. If you recall our last conversation, we made reference several times to Chapter 6 of the Constitution, because if you go to Article 73, it starts unpacking what the ingredients of ethical leadership include. And as Sheila rightly points out, the people in positions of public trust, they're there on our behalf. So there's certain conduct we expect of them. But even before they get there, one of the things the Constitution says is that their selection should be on merit. And I think this is one of the challenges we are having as Kenyans, because I don't know if we fully understand or we have fully internalized the issue of merit, because if somebody gives me a bit of money and gets on the ballot or pays me to vote for him, I'm not sure that translates to merit. So selection on the basis of merit. And the moment this person is in that position of trust, they have to conduct themselves with transparency, because the other side of the coin of transparency is now accountability. And so what you find is Chapter 6 now unpacks all the various ingredients that make up ethical leadership. But I think we should start with the selection on the basis of merit.
So Sheila, with the findings, and even as we go forward with these conversations and asking ourselves, okay, so what is the psyche of Kenyans right now? Would you say, from these responses that you've been able to get, from what we see currently happening in the country, that there is a sufficient percentage of ethical leadership presently in the country?
No, I don't. I wouldn't say that there's a sufficient percentage of ethical leadership in the country. Reason being, and you only need to look at the number of cases, corruption cases and other criminal cases touching on the leaders who are currently in office, whether it is elected or appointed officers. And so for me, the fact that we have had a number of these leaders in this very important position, flouting Chapter 6 of the Constitution, since the enactment, since the promulgation of the Constitution in 2010, it is really a key marker that, Chapter 6, I keep on saying this, that, Chapter 6 has been observed more in breach than in compliance. And that's because you see a lot of our leaders who have had to troop to court have been arraigned. Some have been, impeached, removed from office, told to stay away from their offices by the court. And that's really an indication that our leadership does not really reflect the provisions of Chapter 6 or the aspirations that we had when we passed our Constitution. Even when you look at the findings, though, you find that Kenyans really would want to associate with ethical leadership. When 81% tell you that they are likely to vote for someone with issues, and when 75% say that those people who are accused of corruption, whether proven or not, should actually be kept away from the ballot and not allowed to vie. That shows you that Kenyans, on the other hand, have high ethical aspirations. It's a matter, as I know we had a big debate about it, and I'm sure he's not here with us. We raised quite some pertinent questions. But there's a big disparity between what Kenyans aspire and what they are actually doing in reality. When they're in the ballot box, they're given that opportunity to, and act as a thief by, choosing the, wheat from the chaff, separating the wheat from the chaff. But I think for me, the fact is that Kenyans, okay, we hope that in 2022, and we're working towards it, to ensure that come 2022, we'll have these aspirations actually translated to reality. It is a high task, but we are equal to the task. I mean, as we come together with different agencies, civil society, media, and even the state actors. But I believe that is something to work with. The fact that Kenyans desirous of ethical leadership, leaders who actually ascribe to the values which form the key foundation of the Constitution. When you look at Article 10 on national values and principles of governance. So our work is now to translate this aspiration to reality, come 2022 and beyond.
But then, Sheila, even as you conducted this survey, did you find that there's a unified perception or interpretation of ethics among the respondents? Well, was everybody responding to the same question with the same understanding of what ethics means?
I think generally, yes. Because when you find people resoundingly, when you look at the findings, you know, most people when it came to those questions around ethics, you know, like would you vote for someone who has a corruption case or who has been accused of corruption? What do you think about people who have those kind of cases? Should they be allowed to vie? Should they just stay aside? When you look at the number of Kenyans coming to say, and vote on the side of integrity, I think there's generally an understanding, yeah? And I think we've done our work in the last few years, whether as ESCC, as civil society organizations, in terms of promoting awareness and knowledge. And it's not just even about the people we spoke to in the survey, but generally right now when we go out for our outreach function, people generally understand, what is corruption, what is ethics, what is right and what is wrong. But it is a matter of translating that to practice, as I emphasize. Yeah, and I think you'll find that aspect in many challenges. Even if you look at the work around HIV/AIDS, it took a while before we translated, the knowledge to attitude and then to practice. Yeah, and that's why I keep on saying we really need to craft a behavior change model, that is able to translate what Kenyans know is right to now choosing leaders who actually demonstrate and actually do what is right for the public interest.
I'm asking that because, again, I'll come back to what I was still raising the last time. When 82% of the respondents indicate that they are unlikely, very unlikely, or unlikely to vote for a candidate with a history of corruption, that's a very high threshold. 75% believe that a person who is convicted, who is accused, or who is under investigation for corruption should not be allowed to contest for a leadership position. That's a very high percentage. And then you also look at 59% saying that they would willingly accept a bribe from a politician, irrespective of whether they would vote for them or not. That's more than half of the population. That's why I come back to ask, we hear corruption, we hear all these things, but have we internalized this corruption and drawn a direct link between corruption is equals ethics or non-ethics?
And then it would appear, even as you look at that, and then also, Sheila, and maybe you could also jump on to this as well, Philip, is that it would appear that ethics then would only be applied to leadership, but that when you are involving yourself in something that is a bit dodgy, it is not unethical or immoral, except when it is at leadership status. So it would seem as though there's a separation between then who is corrupt or who is unethical and who is not. Do you see that as well? Because if you would not vote 82% resoundingly for somebody who's been involved in a case before, but you would accept a bribe from such an individual, from the same person, what are we saying? We're all in the same pot, are we not?
Yeah, but also let me add, I think we also debated about this yesterday. So that's the whole thing. And as I said, it's a whole debate about, from knowledge to attitude to practice. Because yes, 59% say that they would accept a bribe, but then again, 90% of those who say that they would accept a bribe would not go ahead to vote, for that person, necessarily vote for that person that gave them a bribe. Though of course, as a principle, we were telling Kenyans is don't accept that bribe. It's not even right to accept it whether you're going to vote for that person or not. But as I said, the work that is cut off for all of us, including you in the media, is how do we translate that into practice? But then the other thing, again, and you're right, that we have been telling Kenyans is we actually normally say that the people we vote for, are a reflection of who we are as society, So it is not an accident when we have people who do not meet the standards, the thresholds of Chapter 6, because also as a society, there's something wrong within our society. But then it goes back to our ethical foundation, our values. And in fact, one of the things we're talking about now is that we need to go back to the basics, How do we start talking and instill learning on ethics? It doesn't even have to wait until someone goes to school. It needs to start from the home. What kind of role modeling do we have, for children from the time they're growing up? Because this is where it starts, And so it's a whole question around our own even values. How do we demonstrate them within the family setup, from the family to the society, before we even fill it up to the leadership? But yes, even as we talk about the questions around ethical leadership, we also have to tackle the problem of ethical citizens. Are we ethical citizens? Now, we didn't focus so much on this in this study, but some of our previous studies, like for instance, the Kenya Bravery Index that we launched last year, and I know EACC have also done their surveys, I think every 2 years annually. Philip can advise us on some of the findings there as well, because one of the questions we actually also pose to citizens is, have you done anything? It's not just about what the leaders have done, but what have they also done, in the fight against corruption? So again, you find the same trend. A lot of Kenyans will, in terms of their aspirations, they will say, that most of them will say that, they abhor corruption. But then when you ask them in practice, yes, but did you actually do something, against corruption? And for instance, one of the common things that someone would do is report corruption. Those channels are now, our EACC has its channels, also as civil society, as Transparency International Kenya. We have centers, advocacy and legal advice centers where people can report corruption, and we try to create awareness on these avenues for corruption reporting. But you'll find, like last year, we found only 13% of Kenyans say that they will report corruption when they witness it. Only 13% of Kenyans. What about 87% who witness? Many of them don't report. So there's a whole, of course, they don't report for many reasons. One of the reasons, again, is that they don't feel adequately protected, when they come out, and risk life and limb to report, because we don't have any whistleblower protection mechanisms. In Kenya, we don't have, they're not sufficient in terms of our laws and our policy and institutional framework, but then that's another thing. But the fact that Kenyans, they will say, yes, we abhor corruption, but then when it comes to action, very few do anything to fight it. So it's a whole question around also how do we center this discussion among citizens. But it has to start from a very early stage, and that's why I still emphasize, the role of the family. What are we talking about with our kids when we sit around the dinner table? But it's not just about what we're talking about, but what are we showing them? How are we role modeling, as parents and as older people in the society?
Right. So, Philip, for you, even look at EACC and the work that it does, and then, vis-a-vis this information that comes out now as a result of this study, how then are we going to be able to leapfrog from the place where we are, just kind of like oscillating in one place, saying, okay, well, anybody who then is charged with some of these issues brought before a court of law, but then nothing really happens to them. If we say that things like deterrence comes into play, and to say that, all right, this is where we should actually be going to, but we see court processes taking long. We see individuals who've been convicted coming back to serve in houses of parliament. How then do we say this is what we strive to achieve if the process itself doesn't really seem to be working?
Yeah, that's an interesting observation. But before we even get to that, one of the things we must appreciate is the work that was put into this study by TI, because this represents research and the outcome is empirical data. And because we have data, the interventions we are designing going forward are based on facts. They're not based on theories. They're not based on ideas that people have. They're based on empirical data. The thing about corruption, in my opinion, it's an existential thing. It's almost as deep and as strong as an issue of faith. Now, we were talking about whether Kenyans are truly ethical or they're just pretending. It's exactly the same thing with faith. Are we good Christians, good Muslims, good Hindus? Do we never sin? Why do we need to keep going back to our places of worship regularly? It's because we need to keep being reminded. And the kind of work that you find EACC and people like TI doing is reminding people that, okay, we are all human beings, we all our weaknesses, but these are the standards we should be aspiring to. And when you ask Ndu about ethics and leadership and whether there's a risk of it being interpreted as applying solely to people in positions of leadership, this is what I would like to say. The reason there's an emphasis on people in positions of leadership is because those people are in a position of public trust. They are exercising control over public institutions. Whatever they do, the decisions they make affect very many people. And we really need to emphasize, because those are the people we look up to anyway. And we are hoping if you set the tone at the top, there might be some sort of trickle-down effect where everybody knows that, same thing like in a family, the head of this house conducts himself in a certain way. So we also try and align ourselves with that kind of conduct. And, again, the research didn't really talk to the respondents about what they have done in terms of corruption. And although I noticed that, and Sheila will correct me, a huge percentage of them said, about 60% said they will take money irrespective of who they decide to vote for. There are other platforms, for instance, one that is known as ipaidabbribe.com. And in that one, you'll be able to see people actually saying, I paid a bribe. And those kind of reports are also found in our biannual surveys. And just to answer the last question that Ndu asked, if we are still experiencing a challenge, we have the laws and we have the surveys, the reports, and we are going on outreach. What is it that we can do? And this is a message that EACC is going to continue reinforcing. If we are accepting that at some point maybe the law is not giving us the tools to bar these people or to remove them, the one thing that is not in debate is that a citizen can vote someone out or can refuse to vote a corrupt person in. So the message is this: if there's a weakness somewhere and we are struggling as law enforcement agencies, as civil society, as private sector, you as a citizen have a role to play, and your role is decisive, and there is no question about it. If you refuse to vote in a corrupt person, he can't go to court and say, these people refuse to vote me
because I'm corrupt.
That's very, very true. That's very, very... Chapter 6 will best be implemented by the citizens themselves. Everybody else is just helping the implementation of Chapter 6. We thank you very much, Philip and Sheila, for joining us this morning in this interesting conversation. Let's have it again soon as we roll out the implementation of the report or programs on this particular report, so we can continue the conversation. Sheila Masinde is the Executive Director of Transparency International Kenya, and Philip Kagushia is the Head of Corporate Communications at the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Have a lovely day, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Time for us to take a break as well on KTN Home, SpiceFM and online. It's 8:30. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
There are so many people peddling what is false and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. They gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog,
he's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort. Nafandi umbo yako iko na pembe.
Hii ni umba special.
is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with SpiceFM.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 17, highs of 22 and lows of 13 today. And in Nakuru, sunny at 15, highs of 25 and lows of 14. Light rain in Nyeri this morning at 14, going to highs of 21. Looking into Kisumu, light rain at 21, highs of 28 and lows of 18. It continues to rain here. Partly sunny conditions at 21 in Kakamega, highs of 28 and lows of 16. Mombasa still raining at 24, highs of 29 and lows of 24. And Malindi raining as well at 27 with highs of 29. It'll come down to lows of 25. Out in Kampala, heavy thunderstorms continue this morning at 19, highs of 26 and lows of 18. In Lagos this morning, it's 25 and raining, highs of 29 and lows of 25. It's raining in Dar es Salaam, highs of 30 and lows of 22 today. And in Kinshasa, it's sunny at 23. The sun's out, it's going to come to highs of 34 and back down to lows of 23.
You know, when you see someone being jailed, a governor or two or someone who stole, then people will fear. Because our problem is not the borrowing, it's the stealing.
We've become actually a nation of thieves. The only thing we lack is an opportunity to steal.
The guys who quote the Bible and say I'm a Christian and all that, and you know they're thieves. Return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return and say, my God does not allow me to hold stolen things.
We are also a reflection of you, because you elect us. You know, we don't get into our office by ourselves. We are a reflection of the people who elect us.
We don't want to go to the streets. We have a constitution that enables us, assert our will.
When the legislature are now being taken as hostage by the executive for whatever reason, we are now bound by what they want us to do.
This is just outside the realms of reality. We have impunity written into the DNA of our political class.
How old were you when you learned that Jeshi Lokop is Jeshi Lawokov?
I can't say it very well.
And everyone knows. Okay.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
We're still in the middle of traffic hour. Quite a lot of traffic in the CBD this morning. A lot coming off of Ngong Road, as well as coming out of Westlands and the as well as Langata Road as well. Okay, so we're looking at that area around the Nyeri Stadium roundabout, Aerodrome Road. Not looking bad. Traffic is flowing quite smoothly until you get to that roundabout at Bunyala. There's traffic going towards Bunyala, going then towards Mombasa Road. So there's a bit of a hold up there. Bagathi Way, interestingly enough, today has clogged up quite some, taking out a lot of that traffic that's coming off Langata Road and joining with that that's coming off Ngong Road, so watch out for that. Jogo Road not looking so bad right now, flowing smoothly onto Landis and into the city via Kamkunji. Continues on the Thika Superhighway today, a little better than it was about an hour ago. Kiambu Road also seems to be fizzing out, so that's not too bad right now. Limuru Road, hot and heavy all the way to Wangari Maathai, then out towards Ngara, and then also towards Westlands, and then the city through the other side. So let's watch out for that. The traffic that started very early coming out of Westlands still continues this morning. Outer Ring, guys, is jam-packed. It's red through and through to the city. The bypasses, however, not looking too bad. Let's use those. SpiceFM KE, talk to us there on Twitter. And you can talk to us via text on 40127.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.
Biggest conversation continues in the Situation Room this morning is Nduoko and Eric Latif. We are live on Spice FM. We are live online as well as KTN Home. So the 7 to 8 o'clock hour, we're having a conversation with the governor of Laikipia, Derita Muriithi, and the MP for Laikipia North, Ms. Korere. And we're looking at what's been happening in that region over the last couple of weeks. There's been insecurity, there's been a spate of violence. It's gotten to a point where now people are being displaced, schools and homes are being torched, and there's a clear indication here that the people who are doing this, the attackers, basically just want to destabilize the people and push them out of the area. There is that one. What Nderitu Moredi was also mentioning was what's been happening. A number of things. One, there's drought, and in search of pasture, people have moved from some areas towards Laikipia. People have moved from outside Laikipia County towards Laikipia. There has been, in the last 15 months, bandits moving from one area of a county coming into Laikipia County. Bandits from Baringo moving into Laikipia County and attacking areas of Laikipia County. Senior people are accused of having driven their cattle illegally into these parts of Laikipia County, and especially the Laikipia Nature Conservancy, which is owned by Cookie Gilman. And then there are issues of recently as last week, there was an issue of abduction and counter-abduction. 2 business people abducted at Olmoran. They are from the Pokot community. And then the Pokot move in and abduct 2 business people from the Kikuyu community. And these retaliations also lead to an escalation of violence. Now, these are serious issues that have been happening in this area. And we are basically talking about, first, there's the issue of food security. Now there's the issue of security. On Friday, the Interior Principal Secretary, Dr. Karanja Kibicho, had talked about a meeting that was going to take place on Saturday of the National Security Advisory Council, which is like the technical committee that advises the National Security Council. And they said they were going to meet because of what is happening in the area. The PS described the recent killing of a person as the breaking point of the government's patience. According to the PS in charge of Interior, this was it. They had crossed what is called the red line. They had crossed the Rubicon and declared war. And they were just not going to be let go with this. The Cabinet Secretary issued an order, but we haven't seen the desired response. We have tried persuasion and diplomatic approaches in vain. The Regional Commissioner is on the ground negotiating on our behalf, but nothing positive seems forthcoming. This is a matter we are now taking very seriously, Dr. Karanja Kibicho said on Friday. The PS also questioned local leaders' commitment to peace efforts in Laikipia and neighboring counties. He regretted that the area leaders have previously frustrated peace efforts and warned that the government will implement necessary decisions to be arrived at in Saturday's meeting, even if they are unpopular with the political class. Now, this is a government that seems, first of all, just by that, even if they are unpopular with the political class, we are going to do it. It's as if they're feeling that we really do not want to rub the political class the wrong way unless they really, really push us to the wall. We'd really like for them to agree so that we can have peace in the area. Peace was not forthcoming. After Saturday's meeting, the president summoned the National Security Council on Monday, and after meeting on Monday, there was imposition of curfew in some parts of Laikipia, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. There was an order of a security operation to take place immediately to flush out the armed bandits. And there was also an order, a request to the local leaders, political leaders, senior people who work in government, and other local community leaders who have taken their cattle illegally to this particular area to remove them within 48 hours, 2 days. Yesterday, as George Natembea was addressing leadership and community on the ground, the bandits watched. They heard that she's there. They just basically decided to go and raid a school. They torched a school. It was a store, yes. They burnt a store to the ground in a primary school.
It's a message.
And the security officers were there. They engaged them in a shootout. Nobody was arrested. Nobody was injured. The bandits who attacked that school yesterday are still out there. No one has been arrested. No single bandit has been arrested in this area since this situation started more than a year ago. Not a single person. Yet how many people have died? Many people have died. Many police officers have died. What's happening in Laikipia?
It's a message, and I think what's happening in Laikipia also is akin to what's happening in other parts of the country, whether you want to look at it in terms of the upsurge of violence, whether you want to look at it as, 23 counties facing famine and then facing potential starvation, 12 of them being in very dire situation, and what is being done about it. You want to throw kind of temporary solutions to the problem and hope that you can quell the uprising for some time. You buy off their livestock, you provide water here and there, but in terms of a permanent solution, not really willing to do something about it. It was almost labored when you speak to MP for Laikipia North, and you hear her say, look, we know who these are, we know who is behind it, we know what has been happening for the last however many years, but there's still a reluctance, there's still fear to be able to open our mouths and say, this is exactly where the problem is. Can you not deal with it? I am not able to reconcile with the fact that Kenyans are losing their lives on a daily basis. Kenyans are losing their livelihoods, and we're still kind of pussyfooting around the issue. Like, okay, we've come to the area, we've seen, we've had a meeting. This is what we have said we are going to do. Again, throwing words, throwing plans at a problem that is eating away at your citizen. And I keep saying, we're not talking about a foreign country. These are things that are happening within the boundaries of this country that is known as Kenya. These are things that are happening to Kenyans. These are things that are being perpetrated by Kenyans. I have not heard that these are invaders from another country who are coming in and then, causing this harm or danger on Kenyans' lives. Why is it not being given the priority that it ought to be? You can go into the area and have as many meetings as you like, but until you quell this danger, you're doing nothing. Yesterday, there was a meeting. People walking about, doing consultations here and there. And before you can say Jack Robinson, poof, school is being burnt.
Yep.
Waiting for you to finish, because they also realize that the diplomacy around all of this does nothing. That you can talk about the issue, but if you're not going to do anything about it, lives continue to be lost. You can throw water at those who don't have it, who are suffering from hunger. You can throw words, you can buy their livestock, but guess what? 2022, there will be yet another famine, and people will continue to suffer. What are we talking about? Why is it? And I think that's the thing. The underlying causes of this conflict are not being dealt with.
And they're known.
The individuals who are behind these things are not being called out, are not being dealt with. And until you deal with the actual cancer, you can deal with symptoms for as long as you want, but it's going to continue to be an issue.
The issue of insecurity usually comes out as a symptom of something else that's taking place. And this is, I think, a neglect by government of its people. We had somebody from the NCIC, a commissioner at the NCIC, who was telling us about Marsabit and what's the issue in Marsabit. And this is an issue, it's not historical, it's an issue that's just about 25 to 30 years old, and you can clearly see the progression of what's been happening. It's because there are criminal elements who have connections with government who then make a government not act on what ought to be done, and violence continues to escalate. And the people who end up suffering are the ordinary, the one that the government calls Wanjiko, Mama Mboga, mwananchi wa kawaida, mtu wa pale chini. That attitude of government leadership, they consider you mtu wa pale chini, you can be swept away. I mean, you are collateral damage.
Casualty.
So when Marsabit violence continues, every year there's going to be violence in Marsabit County, bordering into Isiolo. Nothing really happens. When you see violence taking place in West Pokot County, bordering Elgeyo Marakwet, bordering coming also into Baringo, and nothing seems to happen. It goes into Samburu, nothing much seems to happen. When you see it crossing into Laikipia, nothing seems to happen. You just sit back and ask yourself, so what exactly is the attitude of government in terms of, are the people of these counties children of a lesser God? Are they not considered part of this country? When a certain group of this country goes and says, you know what, this part of the country contributes 60% of the Kenya's GDP, does that mean that the others that contribute 40% are children of a lesser God, are less Kenyan? If this was happening in those counties that we have heard recently being called 60% contributors to Kenya's GDP, if this kind of violence were to happen in any of those counties, you'd see a lot of action and decisive action. And I look at it and I see this is a big issue at government level, at state level. Because the people who are in charge of state, whether government comes in or not, they can clearly see this is causing the problem. We had a conversation with the MP for Tiaty, William Kamket, over the phone when there was a flare-up of violence in Tiaty. And the MP was telling us the same thing that the MP for Laikipia North told us a couple of weeks ago. The level of underdevelopment and neglect by government of these areas. Derito Mureithi, the governor, was also talking about the same thing. Vast areas that do not have a single tarmac road. Vast areas that don't have proper schools. Vast areas that don't have a chief's office. Vast areas of this country that are completely underserved by the government of the day. By the government of the Republic of Kenya. Tiaty constituency, same thing we were told. Now, those are the people who are from the Pokot community who we are hearing are the ones who are moving in search of pasture and crossing over into Laikipia. And then there's some skirmishes between the people of Baringo, Tiaty, and Laikipia County. But look back at where they've come from. Look at where they're going. How many schools, how many hospitals, how many roads are there in Laikipia North, this vast area of this country? What's happening? Talk, talk, and more talk. You sometimes sit back and you ask yourself, is this deliberate? Is it a deliberate move by a government to make sure that these things don't happen?
Well, what have they been able to, what have you said? What has anybody said when you look at situations like this that play out, whether it's in Kenya or play out in different parts of the world, right? If you keep people in a desperate state, you, as the person who is, as the one who is either keeping them there or contributing to keeping them there, remains Lord and Master. And you will always have the upper hand because they will always come then back to you for help. If you keep people in a desperate situation, you will forever be the Lord over them. You will forever keep them in a position whereby the begging hand is out. The thing is that realizing that uplifting, whether it is one area of the country or another, actually gives you a lesser burden. If you're developing those areas, if you're making sure that everybody essentially has what they need. What did she tell us? These roads in terms of tarmac are budgeted for year on year. They're budgeted for. But then you're told point blank, this other one needed some attention and it's closer to the seat of power. So, we're going to give it there year after year after year. But what you do, you create this system of dependence that has become so heavy that individuals have, or even communities, constituencies, have no choice but to always remain in a state of beg. That's what you do.
Yep.
So look at it. Here we are. MP begging for roads to be tarmacked, begging for schools to be built, begging for hospitals to be set up, and then now in this current state of violence, begging for you to come in and save us.
The only schools that have been built, burnt. Children not going to school.
Not going to school. So you remain in that situation. So you create that situation of dependence. And it has become so heavy that at this point, did you hear what she said? At this point, you're even saying, here are the security forces. Here is the drama that's going on. Here it is. Please come. And still, people are just walking about the issue, talking about the issue. It's not going to get better. It's just going to get worse. And this, if you look at what's happening here, can be replicated anywhere. It doesn't matter. It's not just Laikipia.
Yep.
Can be replicated anywhere across the country in whatever sector you want to look at it. Look at the famine, for example. Continuing, remain. Please, we are to Naomba Serikali. Please send us food. Can you imagine? Send us food. Whereas you have agencies across the country that are set up to make sure that you mitigate against such things. It cannot be that every time, the easiest option for us right now is to buy their weak animals so that they have money to go and buy food. Is that not dependence of the highest order? that you will wait for somebody to come and save you, whereby you can institute mechanisms to make sure that should a situation go bad, this is what you can do. But
so
you
when
don't
you come
do
and
that.
buy, you know what is happening here is even look at that strategy. So currently, there's a drought in these parts of the country. These are pastoralist communities. So the program is to off-take the animals. You can clearly see what it makes sense. I mean, animals are going to die, so just take the animals and give them people the money.
Sure.
Okay? What are they going to use the money for? They're going to use the money to buy food.
From where?
Let's even say that you have made sure that there are market systems that can get food to those areas. Fine. When it starts raining, will these pastoralist communities be able to restock their livestock? With what?
They've eaten it.
The money you gave them was to buy food.
Yes, this is what I'm saying. So what you've done is that you've started that vicious cycle all over again. They start from scratch, and then come next year, what are they met with? Another famine. And then we say, okay, let's start it again. But you see, how about you institute or establish these mechanisms whereby you create a cycle that is not vicious. You create a cycle whereby we have other things taking place. There is water, but what are you doing with it to make it available for people at that point so that they're able to farm? What are we putting in place? Then that's why I say the reluctance that you see is a deliberate action not to do something about it so that people remain dependent on you when you come in. So that when you come in tomorrow, you can say, well, you know what, this is what we're going to do. We're going to end these problems that famine and insecurity have been causing. We're going to end these problems that violence has been causing. But you choose not to do something about the problem.
It's not for a lack of ideas of what to do.
No, it really isn't.
It's not for a lack of knowing what needs to be done. It is pure and simple, the government refusing to do what it ought to do.
Just don't want to.
People in government, and it doesn't matter, you remove this PS, you bring another PS, they
one.
come, they find that system that is structured such a way that it shall ensure this area remains marginalized.
Yes. Because what it allows you to do later is to come in and you have a point of power that you can play on the people. So then you become the Messiah tomorrow who says, this problem, I will now solve it for you permanently. They do what? They give you the one cherished thing that they have. They give you their vote. You come in and the vicious cycle continues. Look, if eyes are not open to see exactly what is playing out here, there's going to continue to be this problem. There will continue to be the cry out, give us food. There will continue to be the cry that we are hearing yesterday. Please come in. And not one bandit. You go and steal chicken today. They will find you. You said that the NSIS knows exactly if a cow is giving birth. They know the time and the gender of the calf.
National Intelligence Service knows.
They know. Not one bandit has been apprehended. Not one question has been asked.
If you look at what, and I'm drawing a nexus between all these areas, and that's why I bring in the counties of Isiolo, county of Marsabit, the county of Laikipia now, going into Samburu, into Elgeyo Marakwet, into West Pokot. Look at that and what happens in terms of the violence that just keeps going round and round and round. And you can clearly see there's something. There's something in terms of people know who is responsible for it.
Yes.
People know who is perpetuating it, but those in government know and they sit down with them. It was insinuated by the leaders that I was speaking to earlier. There was a meeting that took place at Harambee House yesterday as violence continued on the ground, as a security operation was supposed to have started and it's just basically just limping on the ground. At Interior Ministry yesterday, another meeting was taking place. And some of the people who were invited to this meeting are the people on the ground are questioning. But I thought you should be investigating this person. But the person is in that meeting. The wording of the statement by Interior CS Fred Matiang'i at the end of the meeting of the National Security Council on Monday, we urge leaders, political leaders, local leaders, and senior people in government who have illegally taken their cattle into this area to remove the cattle within 48 hours. You have given them 48 hours and you're pleading with them, please okay, just remove the cattle, okay? That means the fact that it's a third point of only 3 points that were directives issued by the National Security Council. 1, declare this a hotspot. 2, order a curfew. 3, remove the livestock. That means you know where the problem is.
And
but if given the problem 48 hours to resolve itself, well, everybody else gets immediate action to be taken.
Instead of dealing with it with the hard hand of the law, as we would see other situations that would actually happen. So then you have to ask your question. There's leadership, there's governance, there's security, etc., etc. Where in this entire game plan do Kenyans fall? People of Laikipia are Kenyans. The people whose houses are being torched are Kenyans. Schools where these children go to, where this torching is happening, are Kenyans. Where do Kenyans play in all of this? I'll continue to ask where the people fall in all of this. Where do Kenyans play in all of this? You know what the problem is. You have the apparatus to deal with it. You choose not to. What are you saying? That you really don't care about your people. And I continue to say, if you see this kind of action and they're basically telling you how they feel, believe them. Believe them. They're not telling you something different. Believe them.
So in the next hour, we'll open up the phone lines and we want to ask you, do you think the government is intent on resolving the insecurity in Laikipia County and other parts of the country? Do you think the government is fully intent on resolving this particular insecurity? This is what we want to hear from you on SpiceFM. If you're in Nairobi, it's 94.4, Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, and Malindi is 97.7. Today we are focusing on the insecurity in the country, insecurity in Laikipia, which we can see is unfolding, which the top security organ of the government, the National Security Council, sat just to discuss this, ordered an operation. That operation seems not to have started at all. Is the government intent on this? Thank you very much for tuning in to the Situation Room on KTN Home. It continues on SpiceFM. Switch on to SpiceFM. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Okay. So that's what we want to hear. As you call in 0719-012-600. Barnabas says it's a problem for a long time. It took Kibaki a few months to clear land defense forces in Mount Elgon, Pwani Sio, Kenya. Why not all these parts of the country? We are under a devolution era where every corner of the country is well represented. It's a big shame. Indeed, Barnabas. If it got to a point where the government had to take decisive action with the Sabaot Land Defense Force, a militia that was terrorizing residents of Mount Elgon. Action was taken. What happened with the Mombasa Republican Council? Action was taken. What happened with Mungeki? Action was taken. What is it that's happening in Laikipia, in Baringo, in Samburu, that cannot really be addressed? Why can't action be taken?
You know who the bandits are? They're sitting there with their toothpicks in their mouths looking at you. Why can't you do something about it?
They're sitting there with their toothpicks, eh? Natembea nakuja leo. Rangapi? Acha tuongoje helicopter. And they are very well armed.
Yes. Yes.
Meanwhile, they are planning, okay. Governor Derito Murithi was telling us, they are sitting there and they can see.
They can see it happening.
Those are the raiders. There they are. There. And they're asking the police, those guys. And the police are like, hey, you wait. Because police know where their orders come from and the orders haven't come. Good morning, it's 9 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Rift Valley Regional Coordinator George Natembeya has been challenged to say the truth on the real cause of the unrest that's being experienced in Laikipia West. Laikipia North MP Sarah Korere, while being interviewed on SpiceFM's Situation Room, said Natembeya needs to investigate who are giving the bandits the weapons they're using to attack the residents.
The press release that was released by the Cabinet Secretary, she wants senior politicians with cattle in Laikipia, Nature Conservancy, government officers, and other very senior people to move their cattle. And so, you don't need rocket science to know what is happening. The bullets those bandits are using, they don't get it for free. It's bought. And they're very expensive. Like yesterday, they fired more than 100 bullets within 20 minutes. And they are firing these bullets every night, every day. Who is supplying these bullets to them?
Laikipia Governor Nderitu, who was also present in the interview, said that there is some truth in what Korere was allaying, as police were reluctant at making a fast response each time an attack was made in the county.
The minister himself says senior politicians, senior officers and so on, to which we assume he knows them by name. And yes, and we then expect some action. We were also a bit disappointed yesterday with a meeting that was taking place there in the office of the president, in Harambee House, because the individuals who seem to have been invited to that meeting, I would think are the same ones he is talking about. So why is he having a parley with them? So there are some really serious questions that require answering.
Kenya has never received expired vaccines. Chairman of COVID-19 Task Force, Willis Akwale, says the whole issue of vaccines is tightly controlled by Global Alliance on Vaccines and Immunization and WHO, which ensures their quality.
At no time has Kenya ever received expired vaccines. First and foremost, nobody would even export expired vaccines. Vaccines are very special. In fact, their quality is monitored right from the manufacturing, and it is monitored all the way through transportation. There are special monitors that even monitor how the vaccines are moving. If you work with some of our staff, you will get people with phones that can tell you which truck and the temperature that these vaccines are moving. And if there's anything, there'll always be an alert. So let me say it has never been.
Akwale further says that the country only takes in vaccines that they are able to utilize before the expiry date. He has further assured Kenyans that the vaccines being administered across the country are safe for use.
The issue of near expiry is that COVID-19 vaccines have a shelf life of 6 months. So from production to the time you administer, there is a lot of logistics in terms of packing and everything. So even the very best vaccines will be 4 to 5 months. However, remember, in the initial stages, there was the rich countries that had booked the vaccines. So when they vaccinated their populations and started releasing, they were giving us. The good thing in Kenya is that we had built capacity that even if we got vaccines that were like a month or 6 weeks, we are able to utilize them before they expire.
Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka has called on the Akamba community to support the One Kenya Alliance, saying it will bring about change in the country's leadership. According to him, Oka will address the challenges that have plagued Kenyans for a long time.
All of us, and obviously in naming persons exercise a certain amount of restraint, because the information we have generally also needs to be corroborated and so on. But there can be no doubt in your mind, Utu, that Kiati, for example,
Education CS George Magoha could soon have the power to hire vice-chancellors of public universities if a bill before Parliament is adopted. The proposal seeks to amend the University Act 2012 and is sponsored by National Assembly Majority Leader. It seeks to strip university councils of power to select VCs and their deputies. Currently, the appointment of university heads is done by the Public Service Commission that forwards 3 names of the most successful candidates to the University Council. And in business, M-Pesa has hit the 50 million active users mark in Africa as it eyes to expand services across the continent. The mobile financial services platform is operated by Safaricom in Kenya and South Africa's Vodacom, which runs the services through its subsidiaries in Tanzania, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Mozambique, Lesotho, Ghana and Egypt. At least 17 patients have been killed after heavy rainfall caused flooding at a hospital in Mexico's central Hidalgo state. Officials say a river burst its banks and water then cut the power supply in the hospital in the town of Tula. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, it's dulling down on Uhuru Highway in and out from the city, but a few spots to keep watching out for. Ngong Road also looks a little bit better, but then we still see some traffic around Jogoo Road, Mombasa Road. Coming in from the Thika Superhighway has also reduced quite some. Kiambu Road not as heavy as it was before. Still that issue coming out of Westlands, guys. We'll still watch out for that. Remember, they've added some wagons, so you can use the train to get off Mombasa Road and into the city. Sticking in traffic probably will not be a good idea. Look for those schedules so that you can use that to get in and out of town and not stick on the traffic that is likely to increase on Mombasa Road today. Let's look at what it looks like coming out of traffic hour in about half an hour. Text us on 40127. Tweet SpiceFM KE.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
7 minutes
the
after
only
9.
way
Very
to
good morning to you. How are you doing? Kenya's biggest conversation continues, enters the fourth hour. Today's Maasai proverb: the withered tree will destroy the healthy tree as it falls down. The withered tree will destroy the healthy tree as it falls down.
Yep. Misery loves company.
That's it, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you believe the government is serious in wanting to end insecurity in Laikipia, and we extend this, Laikipia, Samburu, Baringo, West Pokot counties? Do you think the government is serious in its efforts to end insecurity in Laikipia, Samburu, Baringo, West Pokot counties? How many police officers have been killed in this particular region that I've mentioned, all these counties, in the last 15 years? How many? Many. Police officers. How many citizens, civilians have been killed? Very many. Every time, operation this, operation that. Operation we shall do this, operation we shall do the other. We declare this and we're going to order disarmament.
Condemn the violence.
You order disarmament. You disarm some people, you leave others with their arms. What games are these? Simon in Nairobi, good morning.
Good morning. I'm actually not in Nairobi.
Where are you?
Laikipia West. Laikipia West.
You're in Laikipia West?
Yes, that's my home.
Okay.
And I think the biggest thing we need to ask Madam Sarah and my governor, Derito, is not about what the problem is what is their contribution to this problem. Because one, we're talking about food and the market at Maran where you guys are supposed to talk about to get their meals. But in real sense, we are not even doing farming the way it was done many years ago. We are subdividing land, but all the way to an eighth. So you go to Sipili, and that's where we used to get a lot of food, so that it goes to Maran, the market. And most of the young guys and their parents are selling land and subdividing to an eighth. So technically, there's no food. So we can't blame God on that one. It's on us. Because there is no food. If it's about the buffer zone, so this is where I grew up. The Laikipia area, we used to have cattle rustlers from Baringo. Moi ensured there was a buffer and he put Turkanas in between. Ask anyone where Marumanet Forest went to. Turkanas came in and were put as a buffer. So for the longest time,
Go on, Simon.
The farm workers for the Kikuyus who have the big land for farming. So Turkanas will come and farm as Avijana Wakulima. Now you don't have the land. So even them, they don't have the food. Then we have to fight because then they want now they'll start raising the excuse to steal. The issue of bandits and them saying that we have a few bandits, keto, they call them keto rustlers.
Yeah.
There cannot be more than 10 politicians. And the more we start saying senior government officials, how many senior government officials are domiciled in Laikipia? There are like 6 families. And we have to be honest, because at the end of the day, these senior guys are in Nairobi. The guys dying are me and you down there. When we are not able to farm. The other day they came to a place called Muthui. Muthui is actually the near border like Laikipia West and Baringo. And all they wanted were the cattle. Now I'm chakula. These politicians, the other big elephant, which I hope one day you will be able to address, is this unsaid word about conservancies. Because that's where guys used to farm. No one wants to talk about it because, of course, it's a hot issue in politics. And if you look at the cycle, my sister and my brother, every year before elections, we have a thing to do with that. Because they want to destabilize these conservancies to get a chunk of the land. Nothing else. If Kamtet is saying, if Sarah is saying we have bandits from up there in Pokot, then we need to ask her, for 5 years she has had 100 million every year in CDF. Nini amefanyia hiyo pesa? We need to ask the other person inside the Baringo, umefanyia hiyo pesa, to ensure these people have a bit of education. If Dorito is saying we need to have a bit of roads done and a bit of medical done, there are classes of roads that are for county, and there are some things like hospitals. I even tweeted once and asked him, boss, you're opening mortuaries all over. You're not opening dispensaries. Even last week, we were at a place called Ngarua. The hospital there has no medicine. Then we went to Maran. There's no medicine. So we can't complain that the national government has to take all this chunk. We devolved a few functions so that we can work. If the governor says there is drought, ask him one question. Why is he allowing subdivision of agricultural land all the way to an eighth? So we can't blame.
What is driving? Let me ask you, Simon, because that's a very interesting question.
Yes,
what is driving the subdivision and sale of land? What's causing it?
Illiteracy. Let's be honest.
Illiteracy.
I finished Form 4. The easiest business I call business. My parents, I convinced them to give me 2 acres. I subdivide, I sell, I go to either Muruti town, Nyahuri to enjoy life. No other honest reason.
But then,
to me, no other honest reason.
But then it also means...
My grandfather just told us, you cannot subdivide our land until the 3rd generation. Today, we don't do farming. My uncle does farming in our land. It's 10 acres. But he told us, the more you subdivide, ile kumtakuwa na pesa, na hamuna chakula mtalimu wapi.
Simon, it also means that there is demand for the land.
For the land. So the people who are buying it understand the importance of having the land. So can it be that this illiteracy then is only a factor for those who are selling and not a factor for those who are buying? Because they understand the importance of having it. That's why they are buying.
Now, the demand for land will never be a problem. There will always be demand for land. But look at the ones selling. Where are we selling? We are selling land because there is demand, but ultimately we will be the ones suffering because there will be no agricultural land. I'm not refuting the fact there is demand. And most of the people buying are not even from Laikipia. But they are buying because a navy is at 150,000, and in Nairobi, a navy is into millions. So you want to buy in a new area and do that. If you told me we are subdividing land in Nanyuki, I would say yes, because Nanyuki is now turning to be a tourist area. Romuruti and these are the areas of Maran are not tourist area. So you ask a salesperson why they are buying a navy there, they have no reason.
Okay, but I also don't see...
buying that.
I hear that. I also don't see the connection between... So land has been subdivided, it has been sold into plots, and the people who are buying are not putting it into any productive use. Previously, this was agricultural land that was growing food. So you are saying that now because there is less production of food and therefore no food being transported to the local markets, that could be fueling the violence. How is that connected?
If you look at the three...
Why would somebody take up a gun to come and torch your house because they didn't have food in the market?
The issue of cattle rustling, my brother, the issue of those guys who come to raid there is connected to the controversies. If you ask a lot of people, there's a bit of bitterness to that land ownership. Okay. No other reason.
Okay.
And it happens And you will hear the next governor who will be vying will be talking about, we are going to negotiate with conservancies to see if we can get a few acreage for you guys to be having a safe through the conservancies. But when they come into office, they realize you can't just not touch that area. That's a hot. Because if you ask them, even
a problem with Simon. Yeah.
But when they come in, it ends there. Yes. Even Korere, ask her, because they talked about there not being, what is it called? Schools.
Yep.
But schools, if they construct schools, it's not devolved. I understand it only helps that MPs are not allowed to fund with the CDF. But schools they can build.
We had
building schools.
We had Sarah Korere in the studio, and actually she raised the issue of schools, that by the time she was taking over as the area MP, there were only about 2 or 3 schools in the entire... There are some wards that did not have a single school. And she was talking about, so we asked her, so what have you done? And she talked about the amount of money that she has had to put into just setting up basic schools and basic infrastructure for schooling. Basics are the same thing that even the governor is talking about. Even when you do the basics, you have to do a lot more in order to bring these areas, a vast constituency such as Laikipia North, into a certain level of development.
Then the schools we require is to also ask the governor, has he invested in Tibet? Because yes, we can talk about primary schools. How many Tibets has the governor invested in the north? And even if these Tibets exist, what are they doing? What are the Tibets for?
You tell us how.
You can't set up a business
from your constituency, Simon. Yes. You're in Laikipia West, right?
I'm in Laikipia West.
Yeah. In Laikipia West, how many Tibets do you know of? And I'm assuming that you know of the Tibets that are in the area.
How many Tibets do I know? There's one in Jesse. There's one in I think there's one in Romuruti, in Nyeri town. I don't know of any other.
And with the increasing population in the area, are there more schools being built?
You know, my brother, you can build primary and secondary. Then after I'm done with Form 4, I have nowhere to go. My cousin, I have a cousin who has finished Form 4. He wanted to do something that would help him, either in farming or anything.
Yep.
There are no TVs that can help you do that.
Yep.
So we push him to Nairobi to study white-collar jobs, but then we complain that they're not able to do that. Last year, the governor was requested to do something they call leasing of land, so that he helps the self-help group for Vijana. They come together and do farming together. I have friends who are farming in Maran, passion fruits, and others are farming near Kenamba. You know those areas of Kenamba. Kenamba is the one that from between Maran is up there, so before Sipili there's Kenamba. They are farming passion, these red fruits are called sweet tomatoes.
Yep.
But there are guys who lease the land. And the governor was told, if there will be chaos here, it will be because these young men are very idle. And you might even be shocked that those we are calling bandits are not entirely bandits. There are guys who are taking advantage of the fact that next year's election will have a bit of issues here and there. And the way you talked about, one of you spoke about the currency.
Yep.
Which is, you come and you sell your kettle and then you buy food.
Yeah.
But you have to restock. And not because you don't have the cows, the easiest way to restock is to raid.
Yeah.
Because Kitambo, the market used to have the cows. You would sell your big cow, take a bit of the money to buy food, then go to Ula and Uza using on the Ndama, buy Ndamas, then head to the forest with them. There's no even forest, my brother, because these people depend on forest to move. Because when there is forest, they will build the temporary shelters, and then they will move forward to other areas. We don't have forest. And we've always asked, why are we not doing reforestation? And as long as we keep blaming the fact that the national government is not doing, the honest truth is, the solution is with the young person there, the common one, and not the politician. The judiciary will do a meeting with the chiefs, and that meeting will say, let's beat every other person. One of what is the idle young man who has nothing to do. The bandits already ran away. So ask yourself, these 8 families that we are not discussing, why are we not mentioning their names? We've gotten to that point where we are acting like Italian or Meta, where we don't mention who is the boss
of these big families
and
that are
that's it.
grazing land.
You don't say the name of the godfather, right?
Exactly.
To say who it is, and then because if it's out in the open, then there's nothing to hide behind anymore. And that's what I'm saying. If we're ripping off the Band-Aid, just rip it off once and for all. Let's get this thing sorted out.
And Nani tried very well. I think I am able to say congrats to Kaparo. If you look at Nanyuki area, where he has his land, where we have Mayan lodges up there, that guy ensured the Maasai are able to protect the local guys. Have you heard of cattle rustling on that side? Someone has to ask him, what did he do? He has a very big chunk of land, but you don't hear chaos on that side. How was he able to talk to the entire community and say it does not happen? I was there last week, and you can still see the Maasai guarding his land as Samurus. Kitambo, it used to be chaos because they would come and raid for food. No, they don't do that. You've never even had one case of them even attacking my young. So we need to actually ask ourselves, are we even, Kibito will have a meeting with the chiefs. Is it going to have a sit down with the young people there and find the solution? Because even the kidnapping of Inumera between the Pokot and the Kikuyu guy, that does not happen with the bandits. They don't kidnap. They are warriors. They raid for cattle. They don't raid humans. So when it gets that point, you ask yourself, is this actually cattle rustling?
There's a lot more that's happening there. Simon, thank you very much for calling.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. A lot's happening in Laikipia, and it needs to be addressed, from an entire 360 approach to the issue, understanding the issues from micro and macro.
I almost hear Simon saying that even if you were to snuff out this current, spate of violence right now, that in no time, another one would rear its head because of the issue at the core. And there seems to be very many layers to these issues. And it's not just security personnel that would be involved, the people of the area, farmers who are selling off their land, who are essentially inviting other pastoralists into the area. So it seems that there are very many layers here. So it's like you cut off a head here and another one springs up somewhere else. But I still do feel that it can be taken care of if we're just calling the thing for what it is.
Of course it can be taken care of.
It can be taken care of. Because we can continue to talk around it and say, well, this is the issue. Somebody will come in tomorrow and say, actually, here's another angle to the issue. And then you're just round and round and round talking about the angles to the issues. Meanwhile, people are dying.
Of course it can be taken care of, all right? And this is where we even look back, and we just celebrated 11 years of the 2010 Constitution last month. The Equalization Fund has never been established. The Constitution establishes the Equalization Fund and gives it a 20-year period. 11 years down the road,
nothing.
Equalization Fund has never received a shilling, has never been put to use. It has 9 years to go. This is some of the money that could have been going into looking at these marginalized areas, historically marginalized areas, and putting into infrastructure development. What does this area need? It needs to be opened up in terms of roads. It needs to be opened up in terms of hospitals, in terms of schools, because these are capital-intensive projects. You put up a school, you've got to put up a hospital, you've got to put up all these things so that the people then are able to deal with what they need to deal with. Today, what we do is we dismiss and we say, these are bandits. They are uneducated. This is their cultural way of life. What we need to do is we got to sensitize the community so that this stops being their cultural way of life. Have you provided the alternatives?
Have you provided the alternative? I want to look at a quote here, and it was very interesting to me by George Natembe yesterday. And he said, while our officers are using AK-47 and G3 rifles, the bandits in Laikipia are using M16s and other heavy rifles, which are usually used by foreign armies who come for training in Kenya. We don't know how they get these heavy weapons. So now if you, in that position, number one, do not know, right, are not doing, and then have no diagnosis or prognosis after the fact, so where does that leave vulnerable Kenyans if those with the power, if those with the scope have nothing? Where does that leave vulnerable Kenyans?
Of course, you know where all weapons come from. You know where the weapons are coming from. And that's the same thing that Sarah Correro was asking. When these young men just spray bullets.
With wanton abandon.
Yes. It's because they know that they have got a supply chain that is working.
Yeah.
I'll just go back and get a fresh magazine and load. And this is not going to cost me much because it's expensive. So whatever weapon they're using more sophisticated weapons than our security forces. That raises a question. How can we say we are running a security operation where you are already facing a disadvantage?
Yes.
With the equipment that you have.
You're out before you start, essentially. So then shouldn't that raise questions about the kind of security that is then being offered and practiced in this country? Because by feigning innocence here, or even feigning ignorance here, you open yourself up to a lot more scrutiny here, because the question will then be asked, so what really are we looking at? What really is the situation? Because then we can poke holes in a lot more than just this. You can poke holes in the operation and say, okay, security operation around the country at any given time then can be questioned. The reason or the explanation cannot be that we do not know. People are continued to be made comfortable at the expense of Kenyans, and this is not the first time. It happens over and over and over again. And here, what is going to rise up? The blood of those lives that have been lost. That's what's going to rise up in anguish.
And the question we're asking is, do you believe the government seriously wants to end insecurity in Laikipia? Not just in Laikipia, but also the neighboring areas, Laikipia, Samburu, Baringo, West Pokot counties. And we can even put in Elgeyo Marakwet because they also are receiving. There's a part of this country where there's a 6 to 6 curfew. And it's not just Laikipia. Also parts of Baringo, parts of West Pokot. There's a 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew. Why? Because of insecurity. And we have security which gobbles up the highest amount in terms of our financial budgets every year. Defense and security get the highest budget. And the best way to address that security is by telling people to sleep early.
So that you're not out when the bandits
Order
are
people
operating.
to sleep early so that bandits are not operating. Now they're operating during the day. You still can't even deal with them. Abraham says, this is the problem. Politicians are funding the bandits.
That's it.
Does the government know this? Yes, the government knows this, because the National Security Council has given politicians and senior civil servants and senior local leaders 48 hours to remove their illegal cows from these areas that they've brought them. So you know very well.
You know who it is.
You know who it is.
You know where they're grazing. You know that they've come in. You know who you've given this time to get out. You know the cause of the problem. You know who is involved. You choose not to name them. And furthermore, you choose not to do anything about them because, you know, what you're basically saying is that the people in this area, all right, if we lose a few here and there, it's not going to be a big deal.
I mean, and make sure that it doesn't get a lot of coverage. Don't make it your big news across the country. No. You know? 28 minutes after 9, we're picking your calls. Do you believe the government seriously wants to end insecurity in Laikipia, Samburu, Baringo, West Pokot, and other counties? Let's hear from you. Kennedy from Kisumu, I see you are calling. You can call after this short break.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Hello.
Halo, umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu acha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial *550*2# to read the Nairobian e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your telecom line and stay up to date. The hottest talk of town with no additional charges.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm syndrome. Our
violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution is rotten. It is based on ideals that cannot progress our country forward.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with SpiceFM.
Partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi today at 17, highs of 22 and lows of 13. Through the day, sunny conditions in Nakuru at 18, highs of 25 and lows of 14. 21 will be the high in Nyeri, where it's raining at 15. Into Kisumu, 24 degrees and partly sunny conditions, highs of 28 and lows of 18. Kakamega is partly sunny at 24, highs of 28. 16 will be the low. Mombasa continues to rain at 26, highs of 29 and lows of 24, and it's partly sunny in Malindi at 28. 29 will be the high and lows of 25. In Kampala, the thunderstorms have abated. It's light rain now at 21, highs of 26 and lows of 18. Light rain in Dar es Salaam at 27, highs of 30 and lows of 22. Lagos is wet this morning as well at 26. We'll see highs of 29 and lows of 25. And it's a sunny Kinshasa today, going to highs of 34 and lows of 24. Out in Beijing, it's 29 and sunny. That'll be the high for today. Lows will be recorded at 19. In London, a haze over the city continues at 16, highs of 28. And in Paris, it's sunny at 18, highs of 31 and lows of 18. We're going to have a cloudy New York early in Wednesday. 28 will be the high and lows of 21.
Spice and everything nice. SpiceFM.
Spice up your life.
All right, in the middle of the cities where you see most of the traffic this morning, it still continues. A little bit off in Gong Road. Bagathi Way was really heavy, and that's slowing down just a little bit, but quite a lot of traffic as you approach the City Mortuary roundabout. Jogo Road, not so bad, just a little bit of traffic there, getting through traffic hour this morning. And also we're looking on the Thika Superhighway, and that is looking much better now. In and out of the city in a whiz, and that's great. Coming out of Westlands also has reduced a little bit. Limuru Road is still heavy in some parts, but you should be able to get through without too much of an issue. What is this? Uhuru Highway, my goodness. Not looking too pretty right now. In and outbound, all the way from the Nyeri City roundabout, all the way to Westlands and inbound. So let's keep an eye on things this morning. Help us out here. SpiceFMKE on Twitter. You can text us on 40127. Let's keep things moving this morning.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4
27
Spice
minutes to
FM,
10 o'clock.
Nairobi.
Kenya's biggest conversation continues. Do you believe the government is serious about curbing insecurity in Laikipia, Samburu, West Pokot and other areas of this country? Do you believe the government is serious? The National Security Council meets on Monday. Okay, let's start. The National Security Advisory Committee meets on Saturday.
Yes.
National Security Council meets on Monday. A security operation is ordered yesterday, Tuesday. The regional commissioner is on the ground. A few meters, bandits attack a school. They light fire to a classroom and a store in a school. Security officers can see the attackers. They fire, the attackers fire back, the attackers go away. Not a single person has been arrested. Not a single person has been apprehended in this area because of the ongoing insecurity. And the government is saying that there is a security operation going on here. How can there be a security operation going on here when the locals is asking, okay, we have left our homes. 100 people are today camped at Olmoran Polytechnic. Another 100 people are camped at the Catholic Church in Olmoran and at the Deliverance Church in Olmoran. We're talking about 200 plus people who have left their homes. Some homes have been torched, others homes have not yet been torched, but they are fearing for their safety. Right. So they have left the comfort of their homes to come and camp at a church in the middle of a small town, very dusty town called Olmoran. And the government is saying there's a security operation going on.
I have to ask, though, with these 3 initiatives that were given, and the third one being that those who have cattle grazing in this area be given 48 hours to remove them. My question is, look at it on the face of things. Will that stop the spate of violence that we have seen in the current days, in the most recent days? Will it stop it? Because it seems as if this particular formula then is being applied, and that will happen. That we have seen the problem. These are the resolutions that we've come out with. And most times when you're giving a resolution, it is that it is going to solve a problem. Is this going to solve the problem that we are seeing today? With the removal of this cattle and they go wherever else they may go, will we see will we see a halt to these issues? We have to ask that question, because then if it doesn't, then this is useless. They wasted time sitting down having a meeting if they came up with a resolution that was not going to solve the problem. It was a waste of time, it was a waste of energy, and it's the waste of those lives that were lost before the fact. It does not make sense to me that you come up with a resolution that is not going to solve the problem. You're talking about something else while cushioning others in their already very comfortable position. So all you need to do is move your cattle. That will immediately solve the problem. I can't reconcile the two. The violence that we see in this area and the lives that are lost on a daily basis. And today, look, it will be sheer luck if we wake up tomorrow morning and something else has not happened today. Right? But now this resolution that has come up, will it solve this issue? I cannot draw between the two.
That seems to be the intention. The intention here is we've discussed insecurity, and 3 things have come up. Number 1, we need to declare this an operation zone. Number 2, we need to order a curfew so we can protect the citizens and ask them to stay calm. Number 3, we need to tell the people who we know are part of us to behave.
Of the 3 resolutions that were made, Eric, one of them was blown to smithereens. The second one, blown to smithereens because you said curfew, dusk till dawn. They said, oh, nice, let's do it during the day.
We'll attack during the day.
There's no
They've
curfew.
been attacking during the day anyway.
Okay, so now that happened. Did you see a counter resolution after that? It was okay. You sat over the weekend. You could have very well called an emergency meeting during the day yesterday and said, okay, hold on a minute. This curfew story is not working. Because if the establishment of a curfew was to mitigate these particular circumstances,
to reduce the incidences of attack.
They're doing it now during the day. What are we going to do?
Yesterday, George Natembea said, this area is vast. You cannot logically be able to deploy security officers to cover the entire space. Let me remind you something. That the air power of Kenya's government is all under the central command of a military officer. We brought in the police air wing, all the helicopters and all the planes, the defense air wing, all the planes that are owned by the Ministry of Defense, Kenya Power, Kenya Pipeline, Kenya Wildlife Service, Kenya Forest Service, any arm of government that has a helicopter, a fixed-wing plane, all of them are under the command of one. So it's very possible for that person who's now commanding that air wing to basically say, all right, I need to deploy 7 helicopters to just go there, and what they're doing is aerial surveillance. You spot where they are, you direct the troops on the ground, concentrate your efforts here. Have we seen that? The helicopter that we've seen is the one that was ferrying George Natembea from Nakuru, taking him to Laikipia Moran, and taking him back to Nakuru, his headquarters. Are other helicopters being used on the ground to see and to monitor the situation?
No.
We're not hearing this. So yes, whereas it's true that George Natembea can say, for you to put boots on the ground here, you need very many more troops. Fine. And the National Security Council has not ordered the deployment of military officers on the ground. Fine. But
is there something you can do?
Yes. Can other resources be deployed? Yes, they can be deployed. Why are they not being deployed? That's a question. And to come back to that, the government knows the problem. The government does not want to address the problem because the government is in bed with the problem.
So who's to be protected? So here you are asking yourself.
Government is protecting itself.
Exactly. Asking yourself that you hold a position as the most important person being a citizen of this country. And those who have been given the position and power to take care of you are basically telling you what they feel about it.
Kennedy in Kisumu, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm not okay over the insecurity issue in this country.
Mm-hmm.
How are you?
Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, Kennedy.
Okay, what I wanted to say.
Yes,
this
go.
country has the best military power in Africa.
Kennedy, we have an issue. We have an issue with your line. Please try and call back. We see whether they can get you in a clearer line. Kennedy from Kisumu, we have an issue with that line. There's some comments on social media.
Yeah, quite a number. Simon definitely did speak. So, well, Hillary says, from the body language, you realize there's no element of seriousness. Empty talks from dusk till dawn. Kenyans can't be helped. They will vote them in again. Becky Kim says, no, they are not now, nor have they been serious. As Simon the caller said, these meetings are just window dressing. Where are the young men and women in these meetings? As long as all stakeholders are not on the discussion table, there is nothing that they are doing. And goes on to ask, who is the commander-in-chief of the defense forces?
The commander-in-chief? There's only one.
There's just one.
There's only one. And when he dresses in military regalia, he has a 5-star. He's a 5-star general. Commander-in-chief of the Defense Forces. Okay. He's the chair of the National Security Council that ordered this operation. That is not taking place.
It's not.
It's sometimes you sit back and you feel there's a frustration, because if you went today and you spoke to the young people from the Pokot community who have been involved in these raids, right? And you look at them, look at the opportunities that they've been given. Have they had the opportunities to go to school? Have they had the opportunity to be able to fend for themselves? Have they had the opportunity to know that there is something else that they can do? Have they?
In terms of
those that would be arrested today, if you went to Baragoi today in a serious operation,
and
because
swept it all up.
Yes, and you arrested those people, and you sat them down, and you look at their lives, would you say that those are Kenyan children? If you compare those children, we see pictures of those young boys and young girls from those regions who are carrying some heavy AK-47 rifle, and you ask yourself, are these children considered Kenyan like the other children in other parts of this country?
Of course not.
Do they have access to all these other services of government that they ought to have access to?
Education, protection, food, shelter. What are they looking for? Because they're looking for them, and they've been put in that position where they are currently. Definitely there's something they've missed out on. There's a lot that they've missed out on to get to the point whereby they are there. And what are we looking at? 14, 15, 16-year-olds? Under the age of 20 are the ones we're talking about. Who are being, and we cannot run away from the fact that they're being manipulated from those who have an extra coin to be able to do this. Seeing as though what they're doing is actually, there are very many angles to this thing. You're robbing young people of the opportunity that they should be having to be educated and make a life for themselves in this country. But here you are. What have we called them until now? When we started we've not called them anything but bandits. We've called them bandits.
They are bandits.
They're pawns in the hands of those who are using their money for an untoward position. That's what they're doing. We've called them bandits. And we've seen many pictures. Young boy in the middle of a field with cattle holding an AK-47. Young children who have been robbed of the opportunity to go to school, which they are guaranteed under the constitution of this country. But here we have people powerful enough, and it is in the open, powerful enough to be able to use their money and influence to hold these lives ransom for their own benefit. How much more ridiculous can it get?
Lydia in Parklands, good morning.
Good morning, Eric and you.
Good morning.
Yes, I wanted to say, some time back, a Pokot guy had said he worked as a guard in Nairobi, and he doesn't want to go home. He's a Pokot. He says it is the culture that if you don't rob, if he doesn't rob your cattle and your sheep, he's a jinga. So it is their culture. So there should be a lot of correction in our lifestyle. I wanted to say they are complaining you should not talk politics in church. I think it is right. It is good that you stand at the pulpit and speak. Because on the street, the thieves and robbers loot shops to pretend that they are backing you. So talking in church is a good time about talking about peace. If you are standing for election and I am standing for election, just as an example, let everybody hear both of us talk peacefully. So it is very good to use the church to speak about future of the country, not on the street as a demonstration or whatever.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Lydia.
you, Lydia.
I see what she's saying. I mean, use these platforms to champion good governance, to champion change, behavioral change. And yes, as much as, for a long time we talk about this is, this is the cultural way of life. It's a cultural way of life because the alternatives have not been introduced. This is, you are born, you don't go to school. So what are you doing? From a very early age, you're introduced to herding cattle.
Yeah.
And then from a very early age, you're introduced to being the warrior, the Moran.
Protecting that.
The one that's protecting these cattle. And then from that very early age, you're still being introduced to, you have got to go and get more cattle by raiding the others. So for lack of an alternative, it becomes, this is the cultural way of life. I mean, this is how they do it. Come on, no way. No way. And I go back into what Sarah Korere has said, what the MPs of these areas have said. How much infrastructure is there in these areas? How many schools are we talking about in these areas? How many kilometers of tarmac road are we talking about in these areas? How many kilometers of just even motorable road are we talking about in these areas? When we talk about this area is a rugged terrain. What are we talking about? So many years later in this country, this is how we describe some parts of this country, and this is where insecurity is rife. It's now then declared a way of life, and they're told you've crossed the red line. As a government, we are going now to come hard on you, very, very hard. In fact, the first thing we want to do is disarm you, and then you're disarming one part and leaving the other part with arms. Clayton says there's more than meets the eye in this particular issue. There's a political angle, there's a security angle, there's a famine angle, and all these three issues there are half-truths being peddled by either side. When the President Kibaki government decided to deal with SLDF, they put a sledgehammer to it and they dealt with it. The same people worked in the same security sector during the Kibaki era, and now, what's the difference? That they do not want to apply the same force to clear out the bandits in Laikipia, Turkana and Samburu. It's been kid gloves all through at the expense of human lives and property.
I have to agree with that. Just kind of tapping when you could actually, stamp it out.
Deal with it, and not just deal with it. Yes, you can go with that sledgehammer and deal with that issue, but then start correcting some of those marginalization issues that the historical injustices that these areas have faced.
Sure. And then provide an environment so conducive that the option of going back here then essentially is extinguished. Because that's the cycle that we keep talking about. You may come in, sure, with your sledgehammer and then deal with it and then go away. But how are you going to ensure that you don't go back into this vicious cycle? And so now when people might ask, you're talking about development, what does tarmacking a road, for example, or introducing schools have to do with making sure that this kind of violence that we see doesn't come back? Well, this is what you're doing, is that you're providing an alternative for the people that we are calling bandits today. If essentially you are introducing culture change markers from the beginning, whereby it has always been that this individual rises up because for want of education, this doesn't exist. For want of development, it doesn't exist. So they come up into this culture because that's all they know. Now, if you introduce these things that we are saying that the lack of forced them into this area, then what you do is that you break the cycle. Young boys and girls can go to school. There's a tarmac road, you can learn a trade.
Yeah.
You can take your produce to market and back. That's what we are talking about here. So it's not just going in and getting rid of the problem, whether it be political, whether it be geographical, whether it be developmental. Sure, cut out the cancer and deal with that, but introduce the option to ensure that we don't go back there again.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to be honest, even in the famine issue, I don't have a problem with buying the cattle. I don't have a problem. That's fine. But what are you going to do as you've bought this cattle to make sure that people can feed? Yes. But at the same time, next year, we don't come back into this situation. Sure, buy it now as a stopgap measure. Do it now. But then what are you implementing? What are you doing to make sure that next year we have this?
You know, even as we talk about CDF, and Simon was raising a number of good points as we spoke. Ask Sarah Correa, for example, what has she done with the CDF that she's received there in the last? Okay, so we're talking about an area that is, first of all, it's huge areas, huge constituencies, Laikipia West, Laikipia East, Laikipia North. 3 constituencies in this county. If each constituency has received 100 million shillings, we're basically talking about an entire county receiving 300 million shillings in CDF every year. 300 million shillings times 4 is 1.2 billion shillings that has gone into CDF since the beginning of this particular administration. No, just this second phase, all right, since 2017. Only 1.2 billion shillings for an entire county. There are some counties that have 5-6 constituencies. Okay, yes, they have a higher population. But then they're also starting from, they have more schools that have been built earlier. They have more hospitals that have been built earlier. They have facilities, they have roads, they have infrastructure. So if you say 300 million shillings is going into Laikipia County in the name of CDF this year, how much is it going to do when there's not a single kilometer of tarmac road, when there's not a single primary school that we can talk about, when there's not a single polytechnic that we can talk about, when we are talking about school, there are wards that don't have a single school. There are wards that don't have a chief's office or a police camp.
Where are you going to start? Where will you start?
And that whole area is also given 100 million shillings per year, a constituency. Do all those things and we shall audit what you've done with it. What are you going to do? There are drops in the ocean because this is actually what this area is. It's an ocean. It's a vast ocean. And
the attention that needs to be paid goes beyond this. And again, we're talking about these uprisings that happen and to essentially cut off the head and let something else grow in its place. But and a lot of times you ask yourself and you say, okay, so you can talk so much, you can bring this up so much, but how then are you going to put enough pressure on the powers that be to do something about this? Because in as much as they can come with force, the security agencies can come in and do their thing and to quell this insurgency and to stop it, what's going to happen to improve the situation tomorrow? And I think that's where our thinking must be. That these will be the symptoms that we can deal with, right? Today, let's say the violence ends. In the next couple of weeks, we're not going to see anything else coming out of Laikipia in this sense. But there has to be a concerted effort to remove the cancer and to put something in the place that has created that hole. And that's what I'm saying. We have to we can talk about it until we have to be comfortable talking about it. We have to be extremely comfortable talking about this thing and to say, look, what is happening here, we can see through it.
Yep.
We can see the people who are instigating this and perpetuating this situation. But more, not even more, something needs to be done. Something needs to be done today. And you need to establish permanent solutions and then permanent forward-thinking solutions in terms of what can actually be done in these areas. It cannot be that people are asking questions, are we children of a lesser God and you live in the same country?
This is actually one of the areas where the Deputy President and his bottom-up campaign could go and work very well. Go and start implementing this bottom-up thing, okay? Start going and showing people this is what we mean. We mean let's start with kindergartens. Let's go into lower primary. Let's make sure that our children are in school. Let's make sure that we have a basic hospital. Let's make sure that we have a chief's camp that has some security officers. Let's make sure that we have security people, personnel who have been deployed here and they can move around. They have proper vehicles. They can actually crisscross this area.
Do you think that
let's make sure that this happens? We don't hear this from the Deputy President, who is the Vice Chair of the National Security Council. We don't hear this from the President, who is the Commander-in-Chief. Just scroll down and we read what Becky was saying earlier when she was asking about the Commander-in-Chief. She's asking, would you delegate the responsibility of running your house? The Commander-in-Chief should be the one camping in Laikipia until security is restored. This is 100% dereliction of duty. And in the corporate world, this would be immediate and summary dismissal.
Yeah, who does the buck stop with? When something is going wrong, do they come and ask the person who is sitting a worker bee somewhere there? No, you go to the top and you say, what is going on here? What's happening here? And not just that, but you must do something about it. You're not able to do something about it, then you should not be in this position. Why in a country do you have people asking, are we part of this country or not? And it's not the first time. It's not the first time.
These are many questions we keep asking ourselves, and we will speak and we'll speak to the duty bearers. The duty bearers include our top political leaders. The duty bearers include the opinion shapers, and the opinion shapers also include the media. We have to continue having these conversations and saying the child who is born today in Olmoran ought to have the same opportunity as a child who is born today in an affluent part of Nairobi.
Sure. Absolutely.
Same opportunities.
Absolutely. It's pathetic that in a part of this country that has also seen the proceeds of devolution, that roads are an issue, the chief's chief's office doesn't exist, that education for even the children who come in at the pre-primary level don't have options in this country today. That's what we should be calling for on a regular basis. Kenyans have to get to the point where calling out becomes second nature.
Yep. And as all this is happening in one part, there's another part of the country where people, millions of people, 3 million to be precise, and counting, over 5, going towards 5 and above, are in dire need of food today, as we speak today. The government says it has set aside how much? 2 billion shillings.
2 billion shillings.
It has set aside 2 billion shillings. Where is that 2 billion shillings? We need to hear that the government has started sending money via M-Pesa to the families of these people. Okay? Now, first of all, send money by M-Pesa. Do the people have phones, or do they sell the phones so they could buy food? Make sure that the money is getting to the people who need this money today so they can start buying food today, because they need the money to buy food today. This is what we need to be focusing on. Not asking us to ask KRA how much you've paid KRA for the chicken that you sold, and you clearly know whether that has happened or not. You know that. Tomorrow, we'll have Chief Justice Martha Koome with us in the Situation Room. We'll be asking her about the first 3 months that she's been in office, what her experience has been, and the plan that she has. Her experience is just a little bit of it, but the plan that the Chief Justice has in her tenure as Chief Justice, how does she expect to make sure that she leaves a lasting legacy where justice is accessible to all? Those are the questions we'll be asking Chief Justice Martha Koome tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Make sure you tune in for that. Meanwhile, have a lovely day. Say goodbye.
Goodbye. Have a lovely day. We continue talking tomorrow.
Yes. Sugar and Spice coming up at 11 until 3, and then Edward Quach comes from 3 with Spice Drive. Good afternoon. No, that'll be good afternoon at that point.
Yes, but now it's good morning.
It's a good morning and a good day. It's 10 a.m.
spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning. This is the Newswire. I'm Leah